opposition actor could be continuing to fuel things as this protest grows, but perhaps even instigating it from the outset.
Yo, Canada, yo, world. Here we go. Oh, great, I can hear myself. Well, I'm an OBS noob. Tonight will probably be a disaster. Let me check something here. We're going to stream the interview in 30 minutes. Before that, we'll check out some other clips of interest. Just got to figure out how to not hear myself bouncing back. How's the audio out there, humans? Are you hearing me twice, or is it just me hearing me twice? Advanced audio properties. Monitoring is off. So I'm just... Hey, Pukester. Best name on Rumble. One second here. Got a lot of stuff to work through here. All right. Chat's up. Pukester, I was told we get free t-shirts if we get here early. That's true. Just put your real name and address up on the chat, and we'll send you a free t-shirt. Allow 6 months for delivery from Whitehorse, Yukon. Okay, so this double audio thing is killing me. I think it's just happening on my end. No, okay. Always something, man. Is audio good there, Pukester? Are you just getting me once when I talk? Okay, so it's just happening on my system. It's a madness that I've got to get over. And I will. All right, so hey, let's get caught up on a bit of useless news. Big Ukraine offensive today. Boy, Ukraine's going to take back their country from that evil dictator Putin.
Ukrainian forces actually invade Russia?
Well, yes. We'll make it simple. They crossed the border in the Kursk region. It was lightly defended by Russia, but you know this is being played to the propaganda hilt, because the reaction of both the Ukrainian authorities and, most importantly, the U.S. news media, the U.S. think tanks. My God, they're celebrating this like it was that they're Germans, and this was the start of the Battle of the Bulge. You know, oh, we're sweeping the Americans from the field. They're taking over Russia. Russia's on its heels. It's the most absurd thing I think we've seen in the course of this entire war, because it looks like the total force that the Ukrainians launched across the border was maybe 2,000 men, possibly 3,000. What's worth noting is that the Russians killed at least 1,500 of those within the first 2 days. So it's not exactly like they're rolling to victory. This has been a PR win, but it's really it has a short shelf life. The expiration date on it, I think, was on Sunday, because their original goal, it appears, was to get close to the nuclear power plant in Kursk and maybe even take control of it. They failed to do that. What we've learned is that the Russians are very effective at quickly mobilizing and deploying their personnel to the scene. And they're slaughtering the Ukrainians. That's the simple fact.
Yeah, mobilizing their 500,000 hardened, trained, over 6 months troops that have gone through full basic training and advanced training, slowly over months and years. And Ukraine's probably fighting now with the grandpas and preteens, and they're making a big offensive. And the headlines, I don't know if anyone's seen them, they're like, this is it. Yes, Ukraine invading Russia. It's so sad. Yo, Super Spreader, what do you think happened with the fire at the nuclear plant? Well, it looks like they hit it with a drone. Buddy's going to get into that in a second here. Let's get back to it.
Here's President Putin, President Zelensky boasting about all of this, Larry. Cut number 3, Chris.
Today,
Boo.
we received several reports from Commander-in-Chief Syrskyi regarding the front lines and our actions to push the war onto the aggressor's territory. I am grateful to every unit of the defense forces, ensuring that Ukraine is proving that it can indeed restore justice and ensure the necessary pressure on the aggressor.
Restore justice.
Restore justice.
And ensure the necessary pressure on the aggressor. This has to be a PR stunt, Larry.
Yeah. The cocaine cowboy needs to stop shoving the nose candy up into his empty head. I mean, this is delusional territory here. What they did is they took some of their best units, and they can't even, let's point out, a normal sized brigade is around 2,000 soldiers.
Right.
So at maximum, they used, looks like they used 1, possibly 2 brigades. And these were some of their best. From fending off the Russians and the Donbass, moved them north to do this. Now, it's one thing if you can, it's not just being able to cross the border and be able to.
My bad. Still learning OBS here. There's going to be mistakes tonight. Audio should be back now on Larry Johnson.
Sit inside a school or a business or a city hall for 12 hours. Can you actually go in, take control, and sustain your presence? And that's what we're not seeing.
What does take control mean? Oust the local government and install your own?
Yeah, where take control means nobody moves on the streets without your permission. Number one, you control who comes in, who goes out. It's actually, the full control of all activity, both from what the people who live there do to anybody from the outside that comes in. And Ukraine doesn't have control. They've been credited with taking this one village, I think it's called Sudzha, and the fact of the matter is they're on the outskirts of it. They haven't even secured the entire area. But
All right, so well, that gets it up to it. Shocker, it's a empty gesture from Ukraine. What have you done? Yeah, that's it. Campaign's over. Might as well wrap it up here. So I don't know how much of the crowd is gamers. I mean, generally, gaming stuff. It seems like it's for maybe the youth who have lots of time to sit around and play video games. I certainly don't. Last game I played the crap out of was Elden Ring 2 years ago, and that's about it. There's no time for this stuff. So, but interesting things have been happening in that sphere, just as they have in Hollywood. And with the biggest thing going on right now is that Ubisoft, the French company, has completely embraced DEI. They've made the latest in their Assassin's Creed series of games, which they'll set it in a historical setting and then greatly mess with the fictionalize it. I think it generally follows a Illuminati conspiracy to retrieve UFO parts. And they've done ancient Greece, ancient Rome, this kind of stuff. So now people have been begging them to do Japan because Samurai and Ninja would be perfect. So they've done it. Their next one's coming out. All the trailers are out. And instead of classical Japanese era samurai and ninja, they've got a black samurai based off of a historical figure who was an African missionary who went to Japan, ended up becoming a servant for one of the most famous samurai in Japan. But woke social studies scholars have turned Yasuke into an actual samurai. Ubisoft ate this up, and they've made the lead characters, 2 lead characters in this one. One is this huge black guy, Yasuke, who was a servant, but now, of course, he's a kick-ass samurai. And the other is a woman ninja. And this has caused a huge thing in Japan. And I wanted to share a bit of this Japanese gamer woman sharing her reactions to seeing the trailer.
Hello there, my name is Cotton. I usually upload videos of my gameplay and other videos. I think those who usually watch my channel were surprised by my sudden uploading of such a video. Now, the problem that started with Assassin's Creed Shadows has become very big.
We'll just get right to the reaction.
Well, you are a friendly beast, are you not?
犬は可愛いね。犬はめっちゃ癒やしい。
Oh, she's so nice.
A samurai. One that does not hail from these lands.
I am a stranger, yes. But you have nothing to fear from me.
Ha! I have enough to fear from the men of Kochiyama. They abuse their power, taxing us again and again, leaving us only scraps.
What is happening here? This isn't your fight, samurai. I told you, keep walking.
Oh, this poor girl. So they didn't stop to think of what this would look like to Japan. Yasuke is quite famous because there's several seminal works from the period, and Yasuke is well known. But he's certainly not. Now they're depicting this giant foreign Negro going through a Japanese town, beheading Japanese people. And the wokeness has diseased them and blinded them so hard. Their need to include diversity has blinded them so hard that they're now like sending in a murderous black man to go kill Japanese, who are also people of color, are they not? Right? And it's even gone to the level that there are Japanese officials that are looking into this to see whether there should be Pukester. It's too late. They already did a Prince of Persia. It's kind of like a Metroid style, a little more like 2D action thing. And the prince is totally black with dreadlocks and the side shaved hair and stuff. It's going to be interesting. Like, all of these games have been complete disasters. They're all going to be complete disasters. So just like Marvel and Star Wars, we're going to have to go through this. Like, but they've been in development for 5 years. So we're going to have to wait for this whole cycle to finish up. And hopefully these companies will just get back to making money someday soon. But this poor girl, though, and the poor Japanese people. They love Assassin's Creed. They've been waiting forever for a samurai version. They didn't realize it'd be set in downtown New York.
There's another. Up the road with the castle.
殺されるところだったっていや安家が人殺しとるやんけ
Persecutor. Greed cannot rule this village. Not while I have breath in my lungs and a blade in my head. I said kill him. I'll wash away his failure with your blood. You will have to spill it first. Who do you think you are? For the people? I am justice.
Oh, look at her face, man. Oh, I can fucking behead him. Oh. Oh, look what you end up with, this giant black man standing over a slaughtered Japanese guy. It's just, I mean, what are they thinking? Well, we know what they're thinking, right? All right, let's see if this will work. One of the reasons that I want
the Alaska-Canada Rail Corridor, last endorsed by President Donald Trump with support from the government of Alberta in 2020, with the construction of a development corridor
and turn it back on again. Give me 1 sec here. This OBS stuff is hard, man. All right, let's try this again and see if the audio works. So, one of the reasons I do want to stream Trump and Musk tonight is, not the normal. I think everybody's like unreasonably obsessed with. Everybody thinks they're American these days. I mean, we're Canadians, and so I mean, it's not our president, not our social media platform, but we are conjoined together. And the last president to do anything that actually benefited Canada was Trump. In a little reported move because it was, objectively a nice thing, so media couldn't report on it. We announced a funding and approval for a railway to go from Alberta to Alaska, which, depending on how the government of Canada responded, that could make stops in Nunavut, Yukon, where I am, uplift communities and make a brighter future, and maybe eventually get that tunnel going from Alaska to Siberia that they were planning 150 years ago. Let's see if this works.
The Alaska-Canada Rail Corridor, last endorsed by President Donald Trump with support from the government of Alberta in 2020, With the construction of a development corridor extending 80 kilometers on each side of the railroad, the long overdue Alaska-Canada rail connection can positively transform the region and the peoples living there in its entirety. Power lines, new cities, fiber optic lines, and where necessary, fresh water pipes would be encased within the corridor. Cities, population centers, manufacturing, and scientific agriculture would be fertilized and harvested in this corridor as well. North America's abundant but large.
Damn it. Okay, let's try this.
The Alaska-Canada Rail Corridor, last endorsed by President Donald Trump with support from the government of Alberta in 2020, with the construction of a development corridor extending 80 kilometers on each side of the railroad, the long overdue Alaska-Canada rail connection can positively transform the region and the peoples living there in its entirety. Power lines, new cities, fiber optic lines, and where necessary, fresh water pipes would be encased within the corridor. Cities, population centers, manufacturing, and scientific agriculture would be fertilized and harvested in this corridor as well. North America's abundant but largely untapped mineral and raw material resources would finally be made accessible by rail link and roads out of the frigid ground for rational use by humankind. The poverty-stricken regions of the world, sick of being exploited by empire and hungry for real development, would benefit immensely by such a new paradigm. As we look with hope towards a brighter future, let us be reminded of the words of Alaska's former governor, Walter Hickel, who had addressed a Moscow conference sponsored by Russia's Council for the Study of Productive Forces, when he said,
"As we look at the goals for the 21st century, it's fitting that we bring Russia and America together. There couldn't be a more important symbol. I have believed for many years that it will happen, and the place to start is the Bering Strait. Let's build a link between our two great nations, a tunnel to move people, resources, and goods east to west and west to east. The world's greatest reserves of natural resources await in Siberia, Alaska, and northern Canada. Let's build a rail connection to take that wealth to the world. Let's build a fiber optic cable link." Direct tie-in between energy and poverty, energy and war, and energy and peace, and peace, and peace, and peace, and peace, and peace, and peace.
Man, I can't look at that little kid looking at the camera and then the nice music out. When I was editing this for Matthew Arrett, I think I cried like 3 or 4 times. Let's see if they are starting that space yet. They have started that space. Here we go. Yeah, all right. What's going on? Okay. Why does this look weird? 1 second here, people.
The Alaska-Canada Rail Corridor, last endorsed by President Donald Trump with support from the government of Alberta in 2020, with the construction of a development corridor
All right, bear with us. Getting this going. Oh, what is this? Private, okay. Let's get. I can't. What the hell?
The Alaska-Canada Rail Corridor, last endorsed by President Donald Trump with support from the government of Alberta in 2020, with the construction of a development corridor extending 80 kilometers on each side of the railroad, the long overdue Alaska-Canada rail connection can positively transform the region and the peoples living there in its entirety. Power lines, new cities, fiber optic lines, and where necessary, fresh water.
Okay. Things are getting weird.
The Alaska-Canada Rail Corridor, last endorsed by President Donald Trump with support from the government of Alberta in 2020, with the construction of a development corridor extending 80 kilometers on each side of the railroad, the long overdue Alaska-Canada rail connection can positively transform the region and the peoples living there in its entirety. Power lines, new cities, fiber optic lines, and where necessary, fresh water pipes would be encased within the corridor. Cities, population centers, manufacturing, and scientific agriculture would be fertilized and harvested in this corridor as well. North America's abundant but largely untapped mineral and raw material resources would finally be made accessible by rail link and roads out of the frigid ground for rational use by humankind. The poverty-stricken regions of the world, sick of being exploited by empire and hungry for real development, would benefit immensely by such a new paradigm. As we look with hope towards a brighter future, let us be reminded of the words of Alaska's former governor, Walter Hickel, who had addressed a Moscow conference sponsored by Russia's Council for the Study of Productive Forces, when he said,
"As we look at the goals for the 21st century, it's fitting that we bring Russia and America together. There couldn't be a more important symbol. I have believed for many years that it will happen, and the place to start is the Bering Strait.
It had started.
Let's build a link between our two great nations.
I was in
A
Chrome
tunnel
and
to
I
move
clicked
people,
on
resources,
Musk's
and goods,
icon
east to west,
to join the
and
space,
west to east.
and the
The
screen
world's
grayed
greatest
out
reserves
like it
of
was
natural
putting up a
resources
pop-up to
await
join the
in
space,
Siberia,
but nothing
Alaska,
happened.
and northern
So I'm
Canada.
trying in Brave
Let's
browser
build a
now,
rail
and-
connection to take
Okay,
that
there
wealth
we
to the
go.
world. Let's build a fiber optic cable link
Same
to
thing keeps
improve
happening, it
world
just grays out.
telecommunications. Let's build long-distance transmission lines to the 1.6 billion people on Earth who have no electricity. Show me any area in the world where there is a lack of energy, and I'll show you basic poverty. There is a direct tie-in between energy and poverty, energy and war, and energy and peace, and peace, and peace, and peace, and peace, and peace, and peace.
Okay, turning off any blockers. There's Alex Jones, and now Musk is showing that he's not running a space, so now it is. Where it just grays my screen out and nothing happens. What the hell? I was in a space earlier. Spaces work best with 3 or fewer users. Yeah, this is going to be like 13 million users. So maybe it's just so much going on. It's just screwing the whole system up, because I'm getting that gray screen. Yeah, and the screen's still grayed out. Like, I guess it's making a call for the authorization for it. Let me try on the phone and see if I can catch on phone. Not that it would do us any good, but it would at least speak to what's causing this. Search for Elon. Join space. Yeah. Okay, so that works great. It's just not going in the browser. Yeah, I'm all grayed out. I can't click on anything. Space isn't working for me. Libs of TikTok says it's not working either. Let's see. Actually join. Yeah, space is not available. Okay, so they're just destroyed. Yeah, agreed. I think this is, I mean, it's just too much hype, but he's been gone for so long. So let's cancel that. What we can check that whole, start playing that video I saw today. Yes. Just got to search here. We're going on the fly here, people. Okay, I'm going to share another video, another big deal that's going on. The drama on YouTube is Mr. Beast. I'm sure you guys have heard about this. Brave browser. YouTube, yes, yes. Transition, there we go. Gee, I can see why people, the first thing they do when their channels get big is hire some, Jamie guy to run the streaming in OBS, because, I mean, this is bonkers. I got to sit down and maybe calm things down. There's a lot of these templates I set up during the National Citizens Inquiry few weeks ago, and there's a lot of changes that happen on the fly, and there's a lot of micro stuff to watch, so that's why audio cuts out, because I don't have this exact setting correct and blah blah blah. So let's see here. We'll start watching this video. This is about Mr. Beast, and my running theory is that this is Adpocalypse 4 or 5, depending how you count the Adpocalypses. If we remember, they went after Philip DeFranco, started to declare that they wanted to become more family friendly, and that's where we got the checkbox that said, no, this is not for children whenever uploading YouTube videos, and massive demonetization of videos across the board. And then, of course, PewDiePie, which is another excellent video that I'll show a bit of if we can't get to the Trump interview. By a guy named PSA Sitch on YouTube that exposes all of this as a grand media scheme put together by the heads of all the biggest broadcasters, traditional broadcasters in the world, because they're scared shitless of YouTube, because it was actually being a YouTube. And they can't have these people with hundreds of millions of followers. They can't have them making millions of dollars. They can't have them directly accessing the people. They want it to be like it was when they had control. There were 3 networks, and they could tell you what to watch, and they could tell you what advertisers to watch, and they want that back. And I think this Mr. Beast stuff, while the guy's, obviously being an idiot, hanging out with perverted trannies and stuff like that, not a good idea if you want to be a billion-dollar company. But I think almost everyone would have some dirtiness in their background if they got looked into at this level, And it's all happening at once. And every day there's a new person coming out with new allegations about Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast. And oh, his reality show where somebody wins $5 million, it was kind of rigged by the producers. No kidding. That's Survivor. That's The Apprentice. You know, for some reason they're going to cancel this guy over there. They're going to cancel it because he's 26 years old with 310 million subscribers. And he's going to become a billionaire. And he just signed a deal with Amazon to make a game show that he controlled. And you can't have this. You know, so I think that's conspiracy hat on. Oh, I didn't bring my tinfoil hat. I'll have to grab that in the break. Let's watch this, and in the background, I'll see if we can get the space going. What? There's no audio on Twitter? What a disaster. Checking. Okay, maybe we'll bring in Alex Jones. Media cannot replace. Nothing's working. Twitter is broken. Okay, testing. Getting rid of OBS for now. It's just too complicated while I'm trying to troubleshoot. It's actually frozen. It's actually frozen while I've been trying to type in chat. So OBS is a fail. Looks like of all things, spell check in Mac OS seems to screw up the entire chat thing that I've got going on. Has everyone got audio? Is there audio on Twitter, audio on Rumble? We got lots of people watching, so that's good. Good stuff. Yeah, let's see if we can finally join this. Just give me 1 sec, everyone. Thanks so much for being patient. Man, I don't even see a link to it. Yeah, it's getting that same gray screen thing. Let's see if we can at least get into a space where someone is talking about it. Maybe they're in the space. Of course, now I don't see any spaces. Yeah, my For You section on the phone is just, can anyone hear this? Can anyone see this? Let's do share tab audio. Yeah, share, home. And it's just, can anyone hear it? I'm unable to join the interview. Anyone else having this issue? Oh, Elon should have put a couple bucks into some infrastructure before doing this. And I think like it's taking down maybe the whole system. I'm trying to look for any spaces or video that's working that we can have a look at, that people are at least talking about interesting things. Well, Jones is supposed to be live. Wow, just nothing's working. All right, then. Find something good to share here. Bear with me, everyone. Way too much stuff to figure out here on the fly. Let's go to Canadian Patriot, Matthew Arrett and Cynthia Chung, and we'll watch that that vid.
Prosperity and cooperation amongst world civilizations on the one side, and a domain of violent confrontation and war on the other. Could the fate of nations hang on the future of this frozen frontier of the Earth?
Jeez, what a mess. Is this video playing with sound on all sources? I'm going to check Twitter now. This is what I get for trying to get smart.
In 2024, Canada unveiled a new security doctrine calling for long-range
something went
missiles
wrong, even trying to look at my
stationed
own
in the
video
Arctic.
on Rumble.
Canada is not alone in this Arctic defense upgrade, with a parallel $56
So can
billion
I not
reform
chat back to
now
you guys
underway in
this
Norway,
Why
which
not?
recently had U.S. warships making their presence in Norway known for the first
No,
time in
pop that
65
out.
years. The extension of a long-range missile shield into Canada's Arctic would extend an
you got
aggressive
in, Pukester?
ballistic missile shield that has already been developed, encircling Russia and China, accompanied
little
by
horse.
an expanded NATO
Sound
alliance,
on X yet?
which has grown from 15 to
I'm just
31
going
member
straight through
states
Rumble Studio
since the
now, which
collapse of the
should be
Soviet
good.
Union. Further, NATO military exercises in the Arctic have increased in intensity over the past year, justified by an apparently inevitable war with both Russia and China. But is this last great undeveloped frontier of the Earth destined to be a platform of war? Or is there another path available to us? In 2007, the Russian government first voiced its support for the construction of the Bering Strait rail
Hang on,
tunnel
keep trying to get in.
connecting the Americas with the Eurasian continent. In 2011, the Russian government restated its pledge to build the $64 billion project.
Gray screen of death.
Sadly, on both accounts, its message was ignored. In 2014, China gave its support to the program for building railways and advanced new development corridors uniting the new and old worlds. In 2019, this vision took on the form of the Polar Silk
really?
Road, extending rail and
I
ports
can't even
in
look
the
at it
Northwest
on,
Passage, which offers to
Twitter.
cut over 10 days of travel time for goods between Europe
Okay,
and
there we
Asia.
go.
And in 2020, former President Donald Trump gave federal support
Okay,
for
I
a
got in.
long
I've got sound
overdue
on
Canada
Twitter, so
to
something's
Alaska
happening
rail
to you on
connection
Twitter there.
as a driver for an Arctic development initiative. So yes, another
My own
paradigm
phone
does
is playing
exist
the
for
audio
this
from the
vast
video right now.
territory, rich in resources and potential for cooperation. But has this view of the Arctic emerged as if from a vacuum in recent years? Or does this positive vision represent a major theme shaping the last 180 years of recent history? To begin to answer this question, we will travel back in time to an incredible diplomatic maneuver that saw Alaska sold to the USA at the end of a bloody civil war. The sale of Alaska stands out as an incomprehensible historic anomaly for many who choose to see history merely as a sequence of linear events determined by practical decision-making. Why did it happen? What motives did Russia have for selling this vast expanse of territory, so rich in resources, to the United States? Most people have come to believe that Russia and the USA have always been natural enemies, and thus this question becomes additionally perplexing. However, the answer will astound you. The year was 1853, and the world was falling into chaos.
I refreshed on X and
The
now
Ottoman
media can't
Empire
be
was
played.
slowly
Yeah,
failing. Russia was sliding into
Yeah,
war,
so there we go.
and the USA was
I
heading
couldn't even get
towards
in.
its
It would
own
just say
existential
failed,
civil
retry,
war.
failed, retry. This time I
Unbeknownst
got
to
in and
leaders
there
of both
was sound.
countries,
I could hear the
a
video.
grand trap had been set.
Terra Firma 1994. Hey,
Advisors dominating the
Pukester is being
government of
disruptive.
Tsar
Well,
Nicholas I
you know,
promoted the
that's why he's running
belief
for the
that Russia
PPC.
could take territories from the weakening Ottomans, and promoted a foolish policy of expansionism, not realizing that they were falling into a trap set by the British Empire, which would
Man, I
soon
gotta work
see
on
Russia
this.
fall into a 3-year wasting war
I gotta work on this
against
Rumble
an
Studio, I
alliance
tell you.
of
So I
France, England, and the Ottomans.
can't feature chats when they come in. That seems
This
odd.
became known as the Bloody Crimean
Cisatonic,
War,
hey, how you
running
doing?
from
Good to see you,
October
man.
1853
It's a crazy night
to
out there.
February
Twitter's just
1856.
broken. On browser,
The war's
I can't get
outcome
into
saw Russia
anything.
humiliated, indebted, and crippled morally and
We'll try
physically.
Chrome again.
In response to
No
this
point in
failure,
trying Safari.
a new breed of statecraft arose as an enlightened Tsar, Alexander II, took the reins and ended the Crimean War. With his leadership, statesmen such as his brother, Grand Duke Constantine, General Nikolai Muraviev, Foreign Minister Gorchakov, and the
No,
great Russian ambassador to America,
won't work.
Edward de Sturkel, gained a new level of influence, and a new foreign policy
Chrome and
doctrine was
Brave, the
created.
screen just goes blank.
This
Goes like
doctrine
light
was
gray, like it's
exemplified
putting
by
a
an
pop-up
enhanced
menu on,
appreciation
and
of the
I can't get anything.
destructive role of the British Empire's global strategy and the importance of America as a collaborator and partner to the Russians. In 1861, Tsar Alexander II and his brother quickly began tackling endemic corruption and worked to transform Russia by freeing the 25 million Russian serfs who had lived for generations as human cattle, earning him the namesake, the Great Liberator. This occurred only months before Abraham Lincoln was to earn the same title by announcing the Emancipation Proclamation, ending slavery in the USA. Despite the fact that neither man ever met each other in person,
seldom on Twitter,
the
and
US-Russia
mostly banned on
alliance
YouTube.
that
Tell
they
us about it,
established
man.
changed the world
Not
in
certain what
ways
is
that have
next.
still
Yeah,
not
so,
come to be
there's
realized
Rumble,
170 years
which,
later.
you know, it's just
The British
such a
Empire was
micro
petrified
compared
that a
to YouTube.
Russian-American friendship would set into motion a great power alliance capable of undoing its global hegemony.
And Odysee has gone completely Web3. Now, whether you're Bitcoin or not, it's very interesting. They've made their structure completely Web3, so it doesn't need any of the major infrastructure things that they always use to shut down, you know, the Alex Joneses and Rumbles of the world like that. It basically is unbannable. But then they put that all out onto the normal web, which can be shut down, but the whole thing gets backed up. They made like their own node on Web3. So I'm actually re-interested in Odysee, though yet again, it'd be starting all over again, kind of from nothing, you know, for like the fourth time, where we're sitting with, I can't remember now because I don't care anymore, 3,000 subs or something on YouTube, but they won't even monetize us. And every third time we try to go on there, they give us a strike. So, you know, it's a hell of a situation to be in. Terra Firma 1984. I love Pukester more than my luggage. Sincerely. Well, we believe you. Man, I wish we could show chats like Rumble. What are you doing, man? Why can't I show chats on screen? That'd be great. It should be simple. Little house north of 60. I'm using Safari. Well, there you go, man. Safari is a bizarre browser. Its integration with macOS makes it really tempting to use. And I recently did a whole system wipe and came back and trying to keep a really light system. So I tried to use Safari. And their best feature for someone like me is that they have multiple profiles. And you can set up profiles with hotkeys. And so I can have my profile for video editing, my profile for super spreaders, my profile for porn, my personal profile, and keep them all separate and open up the separate web browsers that each stays logged into its own account. So I open up my Super Spreaders Safari and it goes to Super Spreaders Twitter. I can open up my Dollhouse Studios Safari profile and it logs into YouTube as Dollhouse Studio and stays that way, which is really cool. But just that Safari is so broken in so many ways. It gets rejected for many of these, online services that I need to use for Super Spreaders and for my Dollhouse Studios YouTube. And I mean, I tried to do an actual Super Spreaders show through Safari, and then I went to go share a tab, and it blew up the whole system because Mac OS is trying to be fancy with how you share your mic and your camera, and I had to give up. Luckily, Brave Browser has similar profiles now, so giving that a shot, and at least you can turn off Brave Browser's protections and pop-up cancellations and stuff when it messes with sites. For watching, Gary Beeman. Hey, good to see you, Gary. Yeah, YouTube is kind of dead to us. We don't really try there anymore. Depending on what gets says tonight, most live streams I have to delete immediately off of YouTube because they just strike everything that we do, because we talk about the real history of Ukraine, and we talk about the real history of mRNA vaccines. Cyber attack from Dems. Yeah, maybe it's the same guy that hacked GoFundMe for the convoy. I'm sure they'll bring him to justice right away. This is frustrating. Put off going into town to return, recycle, and get smokes to watch this. And now, yeah. Well, exactly. Don't tell my clients, but I'm supposed to be working furiously away here on a film. So this takes time out of my day too. Oh yeah. All right. I'm going to put back on Matthew Ehret's vid that we just finished because it's really interesting. Secret history of Russia and the building of the tunnel between our two nations that should have happened 150 years ago. And I'll try again to get into the space.
Russia and the United States had already developed a historic bond with Tsarina Catherine the Great, leading the League of Armed Neutrality that guaranteed U.S. victory against England in the 1776 Battle for Independence. And American engineers had helped to guide Russia's construction of its first rail lines connecting St. Petersburg to Moscow in the 1840s under the leadership of George Washington Whistler. One of the few means Britain had.
We're in. It's just the starting music. Okay.
At this time, to keep
back
these
on.
two historic
I can hear the
allies from
space
uniting,
and
remained its territories of Canada.
there's a DDoS.
and
Maybe they're
especially the
resetting or
colony
something.
of
It's
British
just the
Columbia.
waiting intro music.
This colony was then an isolated and bankrupt outpost on the west coast, separated from Britain's other 4 colonies on the east coast by 3,000 kilometers of undeveloped wilderness, privately owned.
Excellent chat tonight. You guys are so chatty. I love this. Did Wog tell you that I need your help in a video thing I'm doing for him? Not yet. Summer up here is short, and I'm realizing that there's going to have to be a seasonality, I think, to Super Spreaders. I did want to keep doing the show weekly, but it was just up here. It's summertime. You want to get out, and most importantly, my co-host, who you've probably seen on most of the live shows, Rain, he got married last weekend. So the whole summer has been about getting the Super Spreaders compound completely landscaped, built new garages, new roof on the house, new deck. So much happened. And so we've been working on that all summer. So I've only been like getting back into socials with any kind of energy recently. So this is kind of like my comeback show. So no, I didn't get that. But then again, he's got my DMs. And DM me. You're on Twitter. Hit me up. Let me know what you need, and we'll talk. Housatonic. Wow, this is really impressive video production. Thanks a lot, man. That means a lot coming from you. I don't know. I guess you're not on Twitter much anymore, but I had to make a clip out of our one of the videos I first did for Matt. No, our video on Metabiota, Metabiota 2 Pandemic Boogaloo. And that's got a whole little section on from you on there where the Iraqis are talking about how highly trained team with cranes came in to extract medical equipment at the end of the Iraq War at exactly the precise time that the Ukraine army left. And then immediately after that, Ukraine's got biolabs. Yeah. But yeah, man, thanks. I appreciate that. I always want things to look fancy because, you know, people have short attention spans. You can get the historical truth across with people if it looks good. Musk said, Pukester said, Musk said if they can't get rid of DDoS, they will proceed with the limited listeners. Oh, okay. 120,000. Geez, that's going to kill most of us. Kindred Spirit Carpentry and Research, you know it, man. I already had to go through a whole hell of a thing when my father passed quite a while ago now. And he was in the middle of flipping a house on Vancouver Island. And so I had to figure a lot of stuff out then. And then up here, had to refigure, remember, or learn how to do a whole bunch of things as well to get the compound ready for the wedding, which is fantastic. It got me out of this purple basement and out into the yellow sunshine a lot more than I have been. I'd say I've been outside and active this summer more than I have been in 15 years. And it lost me 32 pounds. Oh, little house is Steph. All right. Hey, Steph. More question. All right, you go, man. You can ask me here if you want. There's nothing else going on. But yeah, if it's, you know, detailed and you want some real advice or help, then hit me in the DMs and I'll get right on it after this. All right, we'll continue with the vid for a minute. This is fascinating stuff that happens, secret history stuff.
By the Hudson's Bay Company.
It's still intro music on the space, by the
For
way.
nearly 2 centuries, this private land was managed by Jesuits and Anglican agents of the empire, and intentionally kept the frontiers of North America unexplored, as Canada was expected to be nothing more than a land of furs, without any industries or infrastructure. An economy made up of fur traders, hewers of wood, and drawers of water, but nothing more. The explosion of technological progress within the young republic made this agenda precarious, and pressures mounted as Canadians looked towards their southern cousins and also began to crave the fruits of modern progress. By the time of the Civil War, dynamics of technological growth on both major nations flanking Canada resulted in a trend that saw Britain's grip over its colonies slowly slipping. Before the Civil War in the USA had begun, Tsar Alexander II's brother and advisor, Grand Duke Constantine, wrote to Ambassador Edouard de Stoeckle, saying,
"The United States of North America should, in the course of events, be eager to conquer all of North America, and will therefore meet us sooner or later. And there is not the slightest doubt that it will seize our colonies without great effort, and we shall be in a position to retain them."
As early as 1853, Russian statesman General Nikolai Muraviev had already promoted Russia's sale of Alaska to the USA in a letter to the Tsar, saying,
"Due to the present amazing development of railroads, the United States will soon spread over all North America. We must face the fact that we will have to cede our North American possessions to them."
By 1862, the Civil War had begun in full force, and with Britain's City of London and Foreign Office supporting the Confederacy, tides had quickly turned against Lincoln. The British possessions of Toronto and Montreal served as Confederate bases from which dozens of terrorist attacks were launched against Lincoln's Union from the north. As outlined in the 2017 book, Montreal City of Secrets by Barry Sheehy, even Lincoln's assassin, John Wilkes Booth, was proven to have been in Canada for over 5 weeks prior to the murder, where he received payment, training, and directions from British-sponsored Confederates. Just as British-sponsored battles were being waged against the Union from the Southern slave power, in Canada, over 10,000 British troops were stationed with orders to prepare for a full invasion of the USA, while in Mexico, Napoleon III's forces were stationed under Emperor Maximilian, prepared to invade in support of the Confederacy from the south. As the world watched with bated breath, Ambassador Sturkel wrote to Foreign Minister Gorchakov saying,
"The disintegration of the United States as a nation would, from our point of view, be something to be deplored. The American Confederation has acted as a counterpoise to British power, and in this sense, its continued existence constitutes an important element in the balance of power."
He continued that he desired
the preservation of the American Union as an indivisible nation.
Surely the outcome of the Civil War would have been much darker had it not been for Tsar Alexander II's deployment of the Russian Navy to California and Atlantic coasts of America in 1863, which kept British and French forces from assisting the Confederacy in open warfare against Lincoln. Today, many Americans would be shocked to learn that Russian soldiers were celebrated by crowds of thousands in San Francisco and New York during the height of the Civil War. Later describing his motive for sending the naval fleets, Tsar Alexander II said,
"In the autumn of 1862, the governments of France and Great Britain proposed to Russia, in a formal but not in an official way, the joint recognition by European powers of the independence of the Confederate States of America."
Film gets off to a slow start, but it's about to get interesting. Let's see what state we're in. Yeah, not looking good. Let's see if I can get into anyone's video here.
Check that out.
Okay, so I'm able to get
913,000 people waiting for the stream to start.
I'm able to get
Musk has
some
just
people's
rejoined.
video.
15% off site-wide. Coffeebrandcoffee.com. 100% money back guarantee. How about that?
How about that? Catch me outside. Okay,
My
so we're still
immediate
waiting.
answer was, I will not cooperate in such action, and I will not acquiesce. On the contrary, I shall accept the recognition of the independence of the Confederate States by France and Great Britain as a casus belli for Russia, and in order that the governments of France and Great Britain may understand that this is no idle threat, I will send a Pacific fleet to San Francisco and an Atlantic fleet to New York. All this I did because of love.
I can't wait until we're at like 10,000 subs and can make maybe like $50 a month off Rumble, and I can hire some kid to run these broadcasts. Man, it just kills my brain. Flipping through tabs, sharing, overshared, undershared, mics off, videos on. I just want to be entertaining,
For my
talk
own
to you
dear
guys.
Russia, I acted thus.
All right, Steph, yeah, I grew up in Arnprior. Yeah, Arnprior is great, man. At least a bit out of the city, which is nice.
Because I understand that Russia would have a more serious task to perform if the American Republic, with advanced industrial development, were broken up, and Great Britain should be left in control of most branches of modern industrial development.
by December 26, 18...
You know what's sad? X has a CEO and no one cares. What do you mean? Don't people care an extreme amount? Or do you mean the girl that's the CEO? Is Musk not the CEO? He's just the owner?
'64, as the outcome of the war in favor of the Union was blossoming, Secretary of State William Seward encouraged the Grand Duke Constantine to come to America with the following words.
I think it would be beneficial to us, and by no means unprofitable to Russia. I forbear from specifying my reasons. They will readily occur to you as they would to His Imperial Highness if his thoughts were turned in that direction.
An adversarial interview. And this
We're
is
in.
really aimed at kind of open-minded, independent voters who just trying to make up their mind. So you can understand like what is what is it just like to have a conversation. So honored to Donald, great to speak. We had a great conversation yesterday. As you mentioned yesterday, if we could just record that conversation and post it would have been excellent. And I hope we can have something like that today.
Well, I think we will. I'm pretty sure we will. And congratulations, because I see you broke every record in the book with so many millions of people. And it's an honor. We view that as an honor. And then you do want silencing of certain voices. Usually those are voices that have something to say that are constructive, oftentimes constructive. And so we have to consider it an honor. But congratulations on breaking every record in the book tonight. That's great.
Well, thank you. Well, I mean, maybe we could start off with, the assassination attempt, which was an incredible thing. And I have to say that, your actions after that assassination attempt were inspiring. You, instead of shying away from things, instead of ducking down, you were pumping your fist in the air and saying, fight, fight, fight. And I think that's, the president of the United States represents America, and I think that is America. That is strength under fire, and so that's a big part of the reason.
Sounds good. Okay, great. Thanks.
Excited to endorse you as
Just going to keep it simple. I'm tempted to get OBS open again so I can control things more, but
that was just incredibly inspiring. But I mean,
just going to stay with this setup. It's working.
Not pleasant.
Not pleasant.
Not pleasant.
Blood. I had more blood. I didn't know I had that much blood. The doctors later told me that the ear is a place that is a very bloody place if you're going to get hit. But in this case, it was probably the best alternative you could even think about, because it went at the right angle, and it was a hard hit. It was very. I guess you would say surreal, but it wasn't surreal. I was telling somebody you have instances like this, or like a lot less than this, where you feel it's a surreal situation. And I never felt that way. I knew immediately that it was a bullet. I knew immediately that it was at the ear.
Yeah.
And because it hit very hard, but hit the ear. And I also heard people shout, bullets, bullets, get down, because I moved down pretty nicely, pretty quickly. And we had bullets flying right over my head after I went down. So I'm glad I went down. The bigger miracle was that I was looking in the exact direction of the shooter. And so it hit me at an angle that was far less destructive.
So sorry,
than
guys,
any
with
other
this simple
angle.
Rumble
So that
Studio
was the
setup
miracle.
without OBS, I can't.
For those people that don't
chat
believe in
on
God, I
screen.
think
I can't see YouTube chats. Well,
thinking
maybe
about
I can. I
that.
don't
You
know.
have to, I'm a believer. Now I'm more of a believer, I think. And a lot of people have said that to me. A lot of great people have said that to me, actually. But it was amazing that I happened to be turned just at that perfect angle. And all because I put down a chart on immigration that showed that the numbers were so great. I love that chart even more
maybe
now.
it's a sign. Maybe that's a sign.
Many important people have told me it was the best
a
chart.
Serious issue.
Yeah.
And at that moment,
that's right.
the bullet missed your, hit your ear, but missed your head. I mean,
the amazing thing is that the sign, I said, bring down that sign on immigration, and it was literally about an eighth of a second where it would be good, and after that it was going to be a disaster, no matter which way you were facing. But it just had that perfect angle, which was exactly at this shooter. Very sad situation. Such a sad situation. As you know, we lost somebody that was great, Corey, who a firefighter, a great gentleman, a great trumper. He was just a fantastic family and a fantastic man. And a friend of mine came up, Elon, and said, I'd like to give the family some kind of help. And I said, that's great. He said, do you mind? I said, I don't mind at all. And he wrote out a check for $1 million, gave it to the wife. And, she said, this is really nice, but I'd rather have my husband back, which is a nice thing for somebody to say, to be honest. She's great. The family is great. And we raised a lot of money for them and for two other gentlemen are unbelievable people also. They were hit really badly. They thought they were not going to make it, and they did. The doctors in the Butler area, I tell you, they were incredible. They saved the two, and they were really hit tough, both of them, equally. And we thought, my first question was because I heard bullets flying over me. And I said, how many people were killed? Because we had a massive crowd there, a tremendous. It was all people. So I said, how many people have been killed? Because I knew there were other shots being fired. And they said, we don't know yet, but some people have been badly hurt. And I have to give the Secret Service a sniper, they call him, or sharpshooter, but sniper, because he didn't know there was a problem. He's an extraordinary shot, obviously, and he didn't know there was a problem. And he was able to pick it all out within 5 seconds. And he used one bullet from very far away, I guess probably about 400 yards. The shooter was 130, but he was on the opposite side of the field and the podium. And he saw the smoke and the flame from the gun, immediately recognized it, and immediately took a shot. And it was one perfect shot from very far away. And if he didn't do that, Elon, he would have. I mean, if he would have, a lot more people could have been badly hurt and killed. So I have to take my hat off to him, because that's also a surreal. He's been with them for 23 years, and he's never had anything like this. And all of a sudden he has to act, and it's a very tough thing to act and to be shooting somebody. But he saw the gun, saw the smoke, saw the flame from the gun, very far away. Obviously has very good eyes. He's got very good vision, which I assume you have to have in that particular work. But he took aim very quickly, and they say it was approximately 5 seconds from long range, one bullet. If that didn't happen, because the shooter had a lot of bullets, he had a lot of cartridges up there with him. So could have been brave.
I mean that's clearly he was very competent in taking that shot to stop the attempted assassination. But I mean, there does seem to be some pretty significant failings elsewhere in the system. Like, there's just no way that, like, how on earth does a shooter get on a roof 130 yards away? That seems crazy. I think most people people are wondering how on earth could such a thing happen.
Well, I view it as two ways. There should have been nobody on the roof. There were people, because there were so many tens of thousands of people there. There were people that were seeing him, and there was one woman with a red shirt and Trump all over it, and she's screaming. That guy's got a gun. You saw it probably. There's a guy up there with a gun.
I mean, it's like I guess, for my part, and I think probably many members of the public are wondering how the heck are, basically people wondering by pointing out there's a guy on the roof with a gun. And they're seeing it, but somehow it's not being addressed. That does seem crazy.
Well, they're going to learn from this. The communication between the local police, who sort of had an idea, and then ultimately a man lifted himself up to the roof, could barely do it because he was pulling himself up, and he saw the man with the gun. The man with the gun pointed the gun at him. He thought he was probably going to get shot, but he was like pulling himself up, and because of that, he couldn't get to his gun, and he fell down. Actually, very badly hurt his leg, his ankle. I hear very badly, but he fell down, and he did. From what I understand, he did say there's a guy up there with a gun, and the shooting started very quickly after that. I think it forced the shooter to go maybe quicker. He was supposed to be a very good shot. My sons, Don and Eric, they can't believe what happened, but they said from 130 yards, a bad shot would hit that target almost every time. They said it's like in golf, sinking a 2-foot putt.
Yeah, it's not a tough shot.
It's not a long shot. The Secret Service person had the long shot. He had triple the distance actually. So it was a terrible thing. It's hard. I have to say this about the Secret Service. When I went down, and I went down based on, I think they're screaming, but other people also, because people saw this happen. You had so many people. One of the miracles was that nobody ran. I mean, if a gun goes off, the crowd control people showed us this. When guns go off, and it does happen in stadiums at a soccer match or some kind of a match, everybody flees. They call it a stampede, like cattle. But everybody, and a lot of people get killed with those stampedes. We had more people than you'd have at some of these matches or these games, and nobody left. You had a small group behind us in the grandstand, and that was full. And you look at it as it was taking place, and normally they'd be running. They didn't leave. They saw that I was hurt. They saw a lot of blood, and they saw that I went down. And it's almost like they wanted to be with me. Well, out front, you had thousands, tens of thousands of people. As far as the eye could see, you had people in Butler, as far as the eye could see, and a lot of press too. There were many cameras on watching this. It's what makes it so different, because normally things happen that aren't good, but you never have a picture of it. Here we have all these cameras shooting it, so sort of amazing. But one of the interesting things was that you didn't have anybody flee. You didn't have anybody stampede. Nobody. And there were some people behind me. They stood up and they're looking like, I mean, I tell you, you want to have them in a foxhole with you. I want to meet some of those people because it's so different from what you heard. But so I was down. But the Secret Service guys, there were bullets flying right over my head. You could hear them go whizzing, and these guys came jumping on top of me, and a young lady, Kate. Would jump. They moved so fast, and let me tell you, that took tremendous courage. Now, there was a lack of coordination. There was, obviously everybody understands that somebody that building should have been covered, and
I mean,
that was the big
that,
thing.
Looking at the aerial views, that building would be like the #1 spot for a sniper. I mean, it's like if you were to pick, like, what is the favorite? So if the goal is to assassinate, what's your favorite spot? That building. The roof of that building would be #1.
That would have been the spot.
It's like you can ask for a better location. It's like
no, that would have been the spot. What people think is when the local policeman, who, by the way, he really he did what he was supposed to do. He couldn't hold on any longer. And then when he got his head just peeking above, this guy standing there with a gun at his head, and when he fell down again, hurt his ankle very badly, but he was making the calls. But what happened is the firing took place very soon. So what they think is that this guy ran to his site, which he had all planned out with the gun. He ran to the site and he started shooting fast. And maybe that's why he sort of missed. I mean, he got me, but it could have been, could have been a much bigger problem.
But he totally would have hit if you hadn't turned your head. So, there was it was a very near thing.
It was a miracle. If I hadn't turned my head, I would not be talking to you right now. As much as I like you,
exactly,
I would not.
Yeah,
I would not be talking.
And you'd be talking to me from another realm, perhaps.
Yeah, that's right. We'd be talking from a different place. But it was a very terrible experience. The Butler Hospital, they did such a great job. The doctors were so good. Everybody was so good. There was a mistake. If somebody knew, because people were hearing that, there was just a bad feeling that somebody was around. You know that story now. It's been And if somebody could have said, because they've oftentimes said, like there'd be a lightning storm or something. Because I've done, I think, over 300. I think I did a lot more than that, but we did a lot. And oftentimes they'll say, "Sir, could you wait 10 minutes, please? Sir, could you wait 20 minutes? There's a storm overhead or lightning or something," right? And that happens often. Yeah. And this would have been a perfect time for that to have happened, but it didn't. It didn't get coordinated. That was the problem.
Well, it was I think your actions in the heat of fire. And like what I found admirable there was that you can't fake bravery under such circumstances. The courage is instinctual, or it is not. It's not a rehearsed action. And so I just want to say that I think a lot of people admire your courage under fire there. And
Right.
so
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I didn't think of it. I just wanted to get up, and I wanted to stand up. I wanted to let people know, I felt I was good when they were on top of me, covering me, actually, very much covering me, and very bravely. But I wanted to get up. I said, I want to get up. And they wanted, they have everything there. They wanted stretcher. I didn't like the stretcher. And I knew I was hit in the ear, but I knew I wasn't hit anywhere else. They felt I was hit someplace else because it was such a lot of blood. And they were sure that I was hit someplace else. And they were saying, sir, you were hit more than the ear. I said, nope, I was hit in the ear. I want to get up. Let me get up. And so I got up, and the crowd didn't know what to think. I mean, this was so many people, and you could see they were confused. They didn't know what to think. And I wanted to let them know I was okay. It was very important for me to let them know that. And they went wild.
I want Trump's thoughts on that
they didn't
short
go
female
wild when I
Secret
got up
Service
because they
agent.
didn't know, was I alive? You really couldn't tell. When I stood up before the fist in the air, they didn't know if I was alive. Nobody did. And when I put the fist up, they were just relieved and happy and thrilled, and the place went crazy. It was pretty amazing. It was a terrible thing, but it was
incredibly moving. Yeah. Well, and I mean, speaking of the sort of slide that got you to turn that saved your life, really, was the illegal immigration slide. Maybe this maybe it's worth talking about that.
It was
that slide saved your life.
No, the illegal immigration saved my life. You're right, but it was, I had to be at that exact angle.
I mean, that's a great one. saved by illegal immigration.
The incredible thing, though, when you talk about the odds, you had to be exactly at that angle. But
saved by illegal immigration.
The incredible thing is that the chart, I used it less than 20% of the time. It was just a moment.
Yeah.
It's always on my left, never my right, and it's always at the end of the speech. So here we have it. It's on the right, not the left. It's at the beginning, not the end. And even the people that put it up, they were unprepared, and they did a great job. They got it up immediately, fortunately. But I looked to the right, and the bullet came whizzing by, hitting my ear. So it was amazing. But when you think of the odds of that, and that normally you wouldn't use it. Normally I wouldn't have the thing, and then it would have been a very different story. It's very much, I say, an act of God. It's a miracle that it happened, and I'm honored by it. I'm honored by it.
Well, what were you about to say about illegal immigration?
1.2 million listeners.
Well, I was going to say how good the numbers were. By the way, we're going back to Butler, and we're going to go back in October. We're all set up, and the people are fantastic in Butler. It's a great area. These are incredible people. Like the three that, in the case of Corey, killed, and the other two, the families I got to know them a little bit, and the families are great. But we're going back to Butler, and I think I'll probably start by saying, as I was saying, prior to being so horribly interrupted. But
so rudely interrupted by an assassination attempt.
But the chart.
Some people have no manners.
Elon, the chart was just a chart that, in my last week, we had the best illegal immigration numbers, meaning stopping. It was at the lowest. You've seen the chart. It's become quite a famous chart. But that was the lowest point ever recorded. It was a really, I was very proud of those numbers. And then you see what happened with these people, Kamala and Joe. You see what happened. They just let it go. I had remain in Mexico policies. I had all these different policies that was so good. Guys like Tom Holman and Brandon Judd from Border Patrol. These are all people that they've been on television. They said it's the best numbers we've ever had. We had so many different checks, catch and release in Mexico, not the United. We had catch and release in the United States. We had it in Mexico. We had so many things. We had things where many people come in there, they have contagious diseases. We had everything passed. If you have a contagious disease, I'm sorry, but we cannot allow you into the country. So we were setting literally records, and all I was doing is showing that, and I use it sometimes, and in this case, I'm glad I used it.
All right.
I can tell you that. But
I can put chats up on.
They were
It's a
fantastic numbers.
finicky
But I'm going to
little
sleep with that chart always. I'll be
hamburger
sleeping with that
menu
chart. That
right-click
chart
thing.
was very important for a lot of reasons.
Well, I mean, would it be accurate to say that you're supportive of legal immigration, but we obviously need to shut down illegal immigration, and especially unvetted illegal immigration, because and that's not the same as saying that everyone who's an illegal immigrant is bad. In fact, I think most people who are illegal immigrants are actually good, but you can't tell the difference unless there's a solid vetting of who comes across the border. Does that accurately represent your position?
I say it very simply. They have to come in legally. They have to be checked.
Yeah.
Because look, Kamala was the border czar. Now she's denying it. Everything that I do, she's saying she was strong on the border. We're going to be strong. Well, she doesn't have to say it. She could close it up right now. They could do things right now. It's horrible. No tax on tips, and all of a sudden she's making a speech and there will be no tax on tips. I said that months ago. And by the way, they had just the opposite. They had not only tax on tips, but they hired 88,000 IRS agents, and many of them were assigned to go get waitresses and caddies and all of this on tips. They have a policy. They had a policy that they were really going to go after you, and were really harassing people horribly. And then all of a sudden, for politics, she says, she comes out with what I said, which I think is terrible. And I think it's also hitting them very hard.
I love this no tips thing. It's a great idea.
Now they're also saying they did a good job on the border. We had the worst numbers in the history of the world, not of our country. There's never been a country in history that has had a catastrophe like this. We've had, I believe, and I think you believe this too, you hear 12 million, 13. I believe it's over 20 million people came into our country, many coming from jails, from prisons, from mental institutions, or a bigger version of that is insane asylums, and many are terrorists. And I'll tell you what, they're coming not just from South America, they're coming from Africa, they're coming from all over the world. They're coming from Asia, they're coming from the Middle East, they're coming from countries that are stupidly and horribly bombing Israel October 7th. They're coming from all over the world. And you look at, it's so sad, October 7th, because it should have never happened.
Yeah.
It's so sad when you look at Ukraine. It should have never happened. We have a defective government. These are defective people, and they're not people that should be running it. But where you see it the best is the border, because you have millions of people coming in a month, and then she gets up and she tries to pretend like she's going to do something. She had 3.5 years. And by the way, they have another 5 months that they can do something, but they won't do anything. It's all talk. She's incompetent and he's incompetent. And frankly, I think that she's more incompetent than he is. And that's saying something, because he's not too good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're right,
no,
Donald.
I think it is essential to have a secure border. I mean, you're really not a country unless you have a secure border. And
secure elections too.
Absolutely secure elections. And so it's just essential to have a real border, or we can't function as a country, and our service, our essential services are being overwhelmed in a lot of cities. But I as we were talking about earlier, I think having a legal immigration process that is
function,
smooth and efficient and done well. And I, speaking as someone who is a legal immigrant,
for 1 sec, and we are going to test out
I think
Rumbles.
Like one way to think of it is, who do you want on your team?
Ad.
Ad who do you want on Team America?
All right, here we go.
And I think we want to just say,
have you heard of the recent advertising scandal? Let me break it down.
People who are going to
the CEO of Rumble, Chris
great contributors to
recently released an email from Inspire Brands and Dunkin' Donuts. The email explicitly states the right-wing culture of Rumble is too polarizing. In other
like
words,
in my opinion,
Dunkin'
actually, I'd say
Donuts
like
has a
probably
problem with
most of the
right-wing
illegal
culture
immigrants actually
and wants nothing
are
to do with
are
it or Rumble.
actually good, hardworking
So
people.
here's the
That's my opinion.
solution. Stop buying
But
products
some are not,
that don't support you and start
and you
supporting
just have
brands
this
that do
sort of
support you.
adverse
The
selection
competing
process
coffee
where
brand that we all need
you
to
know
get
if
behind
somebody's
is Rumble's
you know if somebody's like
1775 coffee. For a
you know
limited time, Rumble is offering
has a
buy 2
career
bags of
in
coffee,
theft
get
or
1 for
robbery.
free. Go to
I don't understand what's taken them so long to get
1775coffee.com
here,
and enter promo code Duncan
because we are in
to
such a
get this
target-rich
limited
environment.
time deal.
I
QR
mean,
code on
you
the
know,
screen.
why aren't
Now I hit
more people
complete,
who have a career in
and we're going to get back to
you
it.
know
Thanks,
bad
everyone. I'm
things
testing that
coming here
out. I just
sooner?
want to
Because
see
it's I mean
if that
it's a
works,
piece of
see
cake
if
to
they
go
pay
rob
out.
you know houses in LA or New York compared to other parts of the world, and and in a lot of places in America, if you try to stop the person who's robbing you, you'll be arrested.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's insane.
It's right. I mean, what's happening with crime, and our police are so good, but they're not allowed to do their job. But I have to tell you, Elon, I
They're
hate
not.
to say it because it's such a downer to say it. I hate to say it. I hate it. But you have a lot of people that just shouldn't be. I think it's a much bigger number than you think. They're
I
allowing,
think you're
again,
right.
they're
Yeah.
allowing people from their jails. And if you were running one of these countries where they're coming from, you would have had all of them. As an example, Venezuela, their crime is down 72%. They're taking their drug dealers. They're taking, frankly, their prisoners. They're emptying out their prisons. They're taking their criminals, their murderers, their rapists, and they're delivering them into
That's what Castro did.
yeah,
that.
well, he
You know,
did on a much smaller scale.
Yeah.
You know, it was a much smaller
Yeah.
scale. But this is a massive scale because this is being done worldwide. But here's what's happening. Crime all over the world is down. And wait till you see the numbers that we have. You know, this is migrant crime. This is crime that's going to be.
Yeah.
And I saw it today in New York where somebody was knifed with a raped the girlfriend of a man that stood there watching in New York in one of the shelters and started
Sure.
pulling out the knives, and bad things happen today. But this is happening every day. These are rough people. These are people that are in jail for
Yeah.
murder and all sorts of things. And they're releasing them into our country. And they're telling them, if you come back, we're going to kill you. We're going to give you the death penalty or kill you. So they don't want to come back. But these are rough people.
Yeah.
These are criminals that make our criminals look like nice people. And
So
it's
yeah,
horrible
who's the
what they're doing.
tonic? This is
And
something that I
she's
think
in charge
a lot
of
of
it
people are
because, you know,
thinking
now
of
she's
now. You
trying
got
to say she had nothing
millions
to do
of
with it.
people coming
And
in.
she's such a liar because
They're all
she
being
was
brought
called the
in
border
as
czar the
quickly as
first day, and
possible.
it
And
was
then,
on the
like you say,
headlines of
great
every
guys like
newspaper. She's
Elon
the
are
border
not
czar.
seeing the
And she
picture that
never
their
even went
vote
there. She
gets
went to one
diluted.
location, which had
So
nothing to
I
do with
put up
where the
in
problem
the
is.
chat
You know, she went in and out.
my
I guess,
radical
'cause she was
answer,
getting a lot
which
of
isn't
pressure, but
radical at all.
had
What if we
nothing to
go
do with the
back to the
problem.
American
But she was
Constitution,
the
the
border
founding
czar,
fathers,
and
and make
people
it so
can't
that
allow
only
them
landowners
to get
can
away
vote?
with their disinformation campaign. Now she's trying to say
Eh?
that
Huh? What do you
she
think?
wasn't
And
really involved.
for
And
full
the
disclosure,
whole thing
I'm
is
not a
horrible.
landowner.
She was
Right now, I
totally in
don't own
charge.
any land.
She
I'm
could have
living
shut the
at
border down
the
without him. He didn't
SuperSpreaders
know what he was doing
compound, which
anyway,
is
so he wouldn't
really
have even known what happened.
Rain's
You could shut the border
compound,
down. He
so
wouldn't
I'm
even know the
renting again.
difference. But
So I wouldn't be able to vote.
the fact is
So
that
keep
she
that in
was
mind while I'm
border
advocating
czar.
for that.
But if you don't have to call her
Discuss
that,
below.
the fact is you could just call her.
Put
She was in
the
charge of the
Trump
border,
back on.
and the border was the worst
Right.
ever.
It's simply not working.
No, it's horrible.
Whether it's a question of intention or competence, either way, we don't have a secure border, and we have people streaming over like it looks like a World War Z zombie apocalypse at times. And you know, sometimes you got to sort of wonder, like, is it real or not? So because you see things, you're like, is it real? So I went to the border at Eagle Pass, and I saw for myself in Texas, and I was like, okay, it's real. I'm like seeing this in real time. I actually posted the video like just live. I just flew there one day and just to see, hey, is this made up or real? And I'm just seeing people stream across the border, and I have to say, you know, at least the people that I saw did not look friendly. You know,
These are
people
people.
can look at my video and say, hey,
Yeah.
you know, these people look friendly. I don't look super friendly. So
These are people that Elon would not be the same man if he had to walk across the street and look these people in the eye. These are rough people. These are really rough people coming across. And I know rough people. And these are people that we don't want in our country. And, you know, the caravans are coming in, and they're putting, and who's doing this are the heads of the countries. And you would be doing it, and so would I. And everyone would say, oh, what a terrible thing to say. The fact is, it's brilliant for them because they're taking all of their bad people, really bad people. And I hate to say this, the reason the numbers are much bigger than you would think is they're also taking their non-productive people. Now, these aren't people that will kill you. We have enough of them. But these are people that are non-productive. They are just not productive. I mean, for whatever reason, they're not workers or they don't want to work or whatever. And these countries are getting rid of non-productive people in the caravans in many cases. And they're also getting rid of their murderers and their drug dealers and the people that are really brutal people. And they're coming into our country at levels that have never been seen before. And I saw an ad just before I got on the air. I'm walking over here, and I saw an ad by Kamala saying how she is going to provide border security. Where has she been for 3.5 years? For 3.5 years, we have 20 million people for it. It's a terrible.
Yeah, I think this, frankly, I think this is a fundamental existential issue for the United States. And if we have another 4 more years of open borders, and it's going to be even worse with another 4 more years, it's going to be even worse than it's been for the past 3.5 years. I'm not sure we've got a country.
You don't have a country left. Elon, if they get in, you will have 50 to 60 million people from all over the world, not South America only. You know, we think of South America, we think of Honduras and El Salvador, Guatemala, and Mexico, you know, the 4. But it's not that. It's everywhere. They're coming in from everywhere. And I had to stay in Mexico.
Yeah, I think this is a super important point. Like people, it's like, basically when I went down there, I was like, well, where are people from? It's like almost no one was from Mexico.
No, Mexico less.
It's just the border. It's just the border with Mexico. But the people coming in, it's Earth, the rest of Earth, and America is only about 4 or 5% of the population of Earth. It would only take a few percent of the rest of Earth to overwhelm everything.
We're already overwhelmed, Elon. We're overwhelmed. You had to see the news tonight about New York, and I love that place. And what they're doing to it is horrible. What they're doing to it, and all the courts do is they try and focus on Trump. Okay, let's focus on Trump, who did nothing wrong. I complain about a rigged election. Elon, what's happened is unbelievable. You have from Africa. From the Congo, they're coming from the Congo, and 22 people came in from the Congo recently, and they're murderers, and they drop them. They drop them. They take them out of jails, which is very expensive, to maintain the jails. Although they don't do too much maintaining, I can tell you. But they take them out of jails, prisons. They take them out, and they bring them to the United States. They deposit them in the United States and say, "Don't ever come back, or you're going to be executed." And they don't want to come back. But they won't come back.
Sure.
But they're coming from Africa. They're coming from Asia. They're coming from the Middle East. They're coming from South America.
Well,
they're coming from everywhere.
Earth, basically.
And there are a lot of really bad ones.
It's just an everywhere on Earth thing, and it's just not possible for the United States to absorb everyone from Earth, or even a few percent of the rest of Earth. It's just not possible. So,
well, Elon, we're going to have to finish this up. We're going to have the largest deportation in history of this country, and we have no choice. Otherwise, we're going to have a country. What they've done to our country. Think of it, with in Venezuela and in some of these other countries, crime is down 50, 60, 70, 80%. And you would be the same. You would have.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. Venezuela has not gotten rid of all of them. They've gotten rid of about 70% of their really bad people. Their jails are about 50%. Put into the United States. The same with other countries.
Sure.
Some are at 30%, some are at 50%. They're all different. But the bottom line is they're all going to be at 100%. Why wouldn't you put 100% of it? And they're doing it right now while this third-rate phony candidate. Don't forget, I beat Biden. He failed in the debate miserably. And, some people said, oh, gee, it's too bad. It's too bad he did so badly, or I did well in the debate. The first night they said, wow, one of the people at CNN said that was the greatest debate performance I've ever witnessed. And then 2 days later, they didn't talk about that. They just said he was bad. But that's okay. That's the way I get treated, and I don't mind that at all. What I can tell you is this. We cannot have a Democrat. We cannot have her. She's incompetent. She's as bad as Biden in a different... Look, she hasn't done an interview since this whole scam started. And say what you want. This was a coup. This was a coup of a president of the United States. He didn't want to leave, and they said, we can do it the nice way or we can do it the hard way.
Yeah, they just took him out back behind the shed and basically shot him.
What they did with this guy, and I'm no
yeah.
fan of his, and he was a horrible president, the worst president in history. And one of the reasons he was so bad, first of all,
benevolent
the Israeli
dictator
attack would have
won.
never happened.
Trump
Russia
is a
would
showman,
never have attacked
but
Ukraine.
the topics so
and
far
we'd
have been
have no
repetitive and
inflation.
beat to death.
And we wouldn't have had the
Agreed.
Afghanistan mess, if you think of it.
I was hoping for some
and we
deep
wouldn't have had
insight
Afghanistan.
tonight, actually.
But we think of it. You take a few of those events away, and we have a different world. We would also have inflation was caused by oil.
Yeah, no. I think you're making an excellent point here, which is that when other countries can, that are thinking about invading or doing bad things, when they're thinking about that, they're thinking about, okay, what's the American president going to do, and do they fear the American president, or is there someone they do not respect and do not fear? And I think they would rightfully be. I mean, but look at that the footage of the assassination. They're like, okay, President Trump is like, don't mess with me. I mean, that's like, whereas I think people are not going to be, and they obviously have not been at all intimidated by Biden, and they certainly will not be intimidated by Kamala. And you have to really think of that in the context of global security. That if the American president is someone that, like, evil dictators are scared of, that makes a huge difference to the security of the world.
So I had a good relationship with Putin, despite the Russia hoax that lasted for over 2 years. Just a hoax created by Hillary Clinton and Adam Schiff, some just bad people, just sick people, frankly. I mean, Schiff is a sick person. He's going to end up probably being a senator. It's hard to believe. The whole thing is hard to believe. But, they put our country in danger with that stuff, too. They actually, when they make up stories and you have to fight your way out of it for a long time. But
any of these
I know
one-on-ones,
Putin very well. I got along with him very well. He
much more
respected
interesting
me,
stuff,
and
people
just
get
one
to go
things.
deep
And
on something.
we would talk a lot about
One thing I'm
Ukraine.
learning about
It was the
Elon now is
apple of
he's a
his
very
eye.
shy
But
guy.
I said, don't ever do it. Don't ever
maybe
do it.
he's
I
best guy
shut
to
down Nord
interview him.
Stream 2. That was the big oil pipeline, the biggest pipeline in the world, going all over Europe. I shut it down. Biden came, and then they say, I loved Russia. I was a friend of Putin, and I loved Russia. No, he actually said to me one time, he said, if you're my friend, I'd hate to see you as an enemy. I shut down his pipeline, the biggest pipeline. They were looking at that to fund, and this pathetic president gets in there. And the first thing he did, one of the early things he did, is he shut down. He shut down Keystone XL pipeline, which is our pipeline that would have employed 48,000
stutter.
people, pipeline workers. Shuts it down. That was, a massive job that Obama refused to allow. I allowed it in my first week because it was jobs and it moved oil. And by the way, in a much more environmentally friendly way. It's underground. It's not a truck that catches on fire.
But he doesn't shy away from issues.
Or a train that catches on fire. But think of it. He shut down the
pinpoint kind of topics tonight
XL
that
pipeline.
he might drill down a bit.
The Keystone XL pipeline. He shuts that down, and he approves the Russian pipeline.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It's inconsistent. Certainly, but I mean, I think it's just worth emphasizing, to listeners, the immense importance of whether the United States president is intimidating or not intimidating, and how much that matters to global security, because there's some real tough characters out there, and if they don't think the American president is tough, they will do what they want to do.
I know every one of them.
And that puts the whole world in danger.
Elon, I know every one of them, and I know them well. I know Putin, I know President Xi, I know Kim Jong-un of North Korea. I know every one of them. And let me tell you,
conservative
people say,
governments
"Oh,
going
this
up
is
in
terrible."
Europe, probably, or at least
I'm not saying anything good or bad. They're at the top of their game.
Yeah, we
They're
got
tough,
Starmer in the
they're
UK.
Smart,
It's going to be a
they're
disaster.
vicious,
So I'd love to hear his
and they're going to
thoughts.
protect their country, whether they love their country. They probably do. It's just a different form of love, but they're going to protect their country. But these are tough people at the top of their game. And when they see a Kamala or when they see Biden, Sleepy Joe, they can't even believe it. They can't believe this happened. All the stuff that you're seeing now, all the horror that you look at Israel, they're all waiting for an attack from Iran. Iran would not be attacking, believe me. When I was there, and I say it with respect, because I think we would have been good with Iran. I don't want to do anything bad to Iran, but they knew not to mess around. Iran was broke because I told China, if you buy from Iran oil, it's all about the oil. That's where the money is. But if you buy oil from Iran, you're not going to do any business with the United States. And I meant it. And they said, we'll pass. They didn't buy oil. Other countries, likewise.
Sure.
You want to buy, you're not doing business with the United States. And they were at a point where they had no money for Hamas. They had no money for Hezbollah. They had no money for any of these instruments of terror. And it was amazing. In fact, there were articles when I was leaving, which is hard to believe, actually, especially when you look at what's happened to our country. Our country is so bad right now. It's such a different place. We were respected. Think of it. 4 years ago, we were so respected.
Let's do it. Let's buy a bunch of Scotland and then we can vote.
When I said don't buy oil,
Canada
they didn't buy
after my
oil.
rule
But
goes
they had
through.
no money, and Israel would have never been attacked. Zero chance. And again, I said to Vladimir Putin, I said, don't do it. You can't do it, Vladimir. You do it, it's going to be a bad day. You cannot do it. And I told him things that what I do, and he said, no way. And I said, way. And it's the last time we ever had the conversation. He would never have done. I got along well with him. I hope to get along well with him again. Getting along well with them is a good thing, not a bad thing. I got along well with Kim Jong-un. When I met with President Obama just before entering, it's a sort of a ritual. And I sat down with him and we talked. It was supposed to be for a very short period of time. It turned out to be a long period of time. I said, what's the biggest problem? He said, North Korea. I had that problem worked out very quickly. It was nasty at the beginning with Rocket Man and, all the different things.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden I got a call.
Those were some epic tweets, by the way.
Yeah, they were epic, everything. He said that he has a red button on his desk. I said, I have a red button on my desk too, but my red button is much bigger and my red button works. And then I called him Little Rocket Man of Little Rocket Man. Anyway, here's the bottom line.
And he called Trump a dotard.
And they said they want to meet. They want to meet me. And we met, as you remember, we met in Singapore. We met also in Vietnam. And I got along with them great. We were in no danger. But President Obama thought we were going to end up in a war, a nuclear war with him. And let me tell you, he's got a lot of nuclear stuff, too.
Exactly.
He's got plenty of nuclear. He can do plenty of damage.
It's because, people like Kim Jong-un, they respond to strength, not weakness.
Well,
and
he and I had a good relationship. Remember I met him and we walked onto his land. Nobody ever walked onto his land before. I walked onto. I wouldn't say let's bring up Secret Service again. I wouldn't say they were thrilled when I did that. I walked onto his land, and it was an amazing period. But we were not in danger with him because of me. I always say that we have enemies on the outside and we have enemies on the inside. We have some really bad people in our government and people that are controlling of the people. I mean, I'd mention names, but I really don't want to give them the credit. But we have some really bad, and I say they're more dangerous than Russia and China. If you have a smart president, a president that gets it, we are not in danger from those countries because they need us and they need our help. I mean, we forced Obama, if you think about it, Obama and Biden, and Bush to a certain extent, in all fairness, forced Russia and China together. And if you're a history student, the first thing you learn is you cannot let Russia and China align. But then they also got, if you take a look, Iran, and they have North Korea.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
They call it the axis of evil.
You don't hear
in the
much
old
about
days,
North
you had
Korea
the axis
anymore.
of evil. Here we have a modern day axis of evil. These are
in their back pocket.
Powerful countries, very heavy nuclear, which is the biggest threat. The biggest threat is not global warming, where the ocean's going to rise 1/8 of an inch over the next 400 years. And you'll have more oceanfront property, right? The biggest threat is not that. The biggest threat is nuclear warming, because we have 5 countries now that have significant nuclear power, and we have to not allow anything to happen with stupid people like Biden. Biden did something with Russia. There was no chance of him ever going in. And when I left, and then after I left, they started forming big armies on the border with Ukraine, right? And I looked at that, and I thought he was doing that because Putin's a good negotiator. I thought he was doing that to negotiate. But then Biden started saying such stupid things. For instance, he said that it can be a NATO country. Now, Russia, for as long as there's been NATO, has said we're never going to agree to that. And we go right up front and say that. And we did things and said things through this president with a low IQ, very low IQ. He had a low IQ 30 years ago, by the way, but now he might not even have a IQ at all. There's nothing on the board that goes this low. He said things that were so stupid that war had zero chance of happening if I were there. Zero chance. He was saying everything the opposite. Everything the opposite. And it's so sad because many more people have been killed in Ukraine than you read about. You don't read about how bloody it is and how disastrous.
Sure.
Hey, look, just in the two armies, you lost 500,000 people.
Did anyone see the Weekend at Bernie's video of Biden
Ukraine's having a hard
with...
time. Ukraine, I don't know if you saw the article recently, and it's true. You don't hear the true story.
No, I managed to miss that.
If you think about it, Russia's gone, Russia defeated Germany with us, and they defeated Napoleon. They've been around a long time. They're a big fighting force.
Yeah. So,
and it's very unfair. And Ukraine now doesn't have enough men. They're now using young men and very old men to fight.
Before you know what?
We're in a very bad position. And I'm not going to blame exclusively, but I can tell you I could have stopped that. And a smart president could have stopped that. It wouldn't have happened. But we had a man that actually made it more prevalent. It was so bad. The words that he was using, the stupid threats coming from a stupid face that he was using. I said, this guy's going to cause us a war. He's going to cause us. And let me tell you, it can lead to World War III. That can lead to World War III. The Middle East can lead to. We have numerous places that could end up in a World War III right now for no reason whatsoever.
I think you're right. I think people underrate the risk of World War III, and it's just when you're looking at the risk of global thermonuclear warfare, it's game over for humanity, and it's something that people have, I think, after the end of the Cold War, people have become complacent about, but they actually have forgotten that there are currently a lot of nuclear missiles that have targeting parameters for the United States from 100%. Other countries.
And one of the things we're going to do is we're going to build an Iron Dome over us. Israel has it. We're going to have the best Iron Dome in the world. We need it, and we're going to make it all in the United States. But we're going to have protection. Because it just takes one maniac to start something. We're going to have protection, and we're going to have. Why shouldn't we have an Iron Dome? Israel has one. Some other places have one that nobody even knows about, frankly. But Israel has it. We're going to have an Iron Dome. But with all of that being said, to me that's so important, the most important. But with all of that being said, the election's coming up, and the people want to hear about the economy and the fact that they can't buy groceries because they don't have enough money to buy groceries. The inflation has killed them. Food prices are up 50, 60, even 100% in some cases.
Live in peace.
And this stupid administration allowed this to happen, and it's a shame. And that's the thing that people most care about, in my opinion. They care about the border a lot. And we discussed the border at great length. It's nice to have a forum like this where I can discuss something
it is.
At length. And by the way, you think Biden could do this interview? Do you think that Kamala could do this interview? They would take a pass on you?
No, they could not.
So they don't need Elon.
It was a total mess.
They don't need Elon.
Millions of people tried to get into this one space.
It's pretty sad when you think that somebody that does this for a living can't answer a question or is afraid to do an interview. And in her case, with a very friendly interview, she's got all friendly interviewers. It's pretty good.
Yes, absolutely.
But the big thing now is the economy, Elon. And as much as
Elon,
I view nuclear as the single most important thing, but a lot of people don't understand that. But it doesn't have to. If I understand it, that's all you need. Because if I was president, you're not going to have that kind of a problem. But the thing that they really is making them angry is what Kamala and Biden have allowed to happen to the economy. It's a disaster with inflation. The inflation, it doesn't matter what you make. The inflation has eaten you alive. If you're a worker or if you're just a middle income person, you can't afford. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, people were saving a lot of money. Today, they're using all their money and borrowing money just to live. It's a horrible thing that's happening. And we'll end that quickly.
Well, I think a lot of people just don't understand where inflation comes from. inflation comes from government overspending because the checks never bounce when it's written by the government. So if the government spends far more than it brings in, that increases the money supply. And if the money supply increases faster than the rate of goods and services, that's inflation. So really, we need to have we need to reduce our government spending, and we need to re-examine. I think we need like a government efficiency commission to say like, hey, where are we spending money that's sensible? Where is it not sensible?
Right.
And we need to live within our means. We're currently adding, I think, $1 trillion to the deficit roughly every
Trump's
100
got to
days.
answer to this. His deficit was bigger than
the
any other
interest payments
president in
on
history.
the national debt have now exceed the defense budget. It's on the order of $1 trillion.
It's interest,
and it keeps
I
growing.
rebuilt our military, largely rebuilt our military, did a great job on it, which was so important. You know, we had jets, we had fighters that were, and bombers that were 70 years old. And we did a great job in that. Then by the way, we gave 85 billion of it back to Afghanistan, if you can believe it. We gave them 85 billion. You know, they're one of the largest sellers of military equipment in the world. They're selling what we gave them. That was one of the most embarrassing days in the history of our country. But if you think about, let's go back to the economy. We have to bring energy prices down. Energy started at the price of gasoline. Now your cars don't require too much gasoline, so you know you have a good, and you do make a great product. I have to say, I have to be honest with you. That doesn't mean everybody should have an electric car, but these are minor details. But your product is incredible. But the gasoline, Elon, is the cost of energy. Not only gasoline, it's the cost of heating your house and cooling your house. That has to come down. It's gone up 100%, 150, and 200%, and that has to come down. When that comes down, and we're going to drill, baby, drill. You know, they stopped drilling, and then they went back to drilling because they went back to the Trump policy. But if they won the day after they get into office, this country will go out of business because they're going to go to an energy policy that's not sustainable. Wind and different things. You're not going to have anything. And I know you're a big fan of the AI, and I have to say that AI, and this is shocking to me, but AI requires twice the energy that the country already produces for everything. So you're going to have to build. We're going to have to build a lot of energy if our country will be competitive with China, because that's our primary competitor for this on the AI. You're going to need a lot of electricity. You're going to need tremendous electricity, like almost double what we produce now for the whole country, if you can believe it.
Sure. Well, just going, back to this, like this basic thing, which that people try to make it sound complicated, but it's not. But inflation is caused by government overspending. Would you agree that we need to take a look at government spending and have perhaps a government efficiency commission that just tries to make the spending sensible, and so the country lives within its means, just like a person.
The waste is incredible, and nobody negotiates prices. You used to have a lot of people making jets, and you end up with two companies, and they'll probably try and merge at some point. I mean, I went through it, like Air Force, just a thing like Air Force One. One of the first documents they asked me to sign in General Walks, and sir, would you please sign this document? What is it? Air Force One. That's with Boeing, which is basically two planes, two 747s. And the price was $5.7 billion for two planes. Now they're highly sophisticated. They're even nicer than your plane, okay? But much more sophisticated. They're very, I won't say what's on it, but they got a lot of stuff on it. Anyway, but it's 5.7.
Talking to him on Donald Trump.
It's a crazy number, but I said, I'm not going to pay 5.7. I'm not going to do it. I said, who made the deal? Obama and his people. I said, well, then I know the deal's no good. I'm not going to do it.
Very few people spend
over the course of about 4 weeks,
by
my saying I'm not going to do it,
on Twitter.
I got the price reduced by $1.6 billion for the exact same plane, other than we had a nicer paint job, if you want to know.
Most people don't have it.
But for the exact same plane, I saved one. And I said to Boeing, man, you guys must make a lot of money if you can reduce the price by that. But now what I do hear is that they're going back to
on Twitter alone. I think there are 2 million
Biden administration and wanting big cost overruns, because they see these dopey suckers in there, and they'll end up getting some of the money back. But I shaved it by $1.6
should bang
billion
on
for
about
the
the
exact
embarrassing
same plan.
Afghanistan withdrawal
And you
more
can now
than
take
Bigger.
that
I agree
and multiply that
100%.
out times thousands of other
Exactly.
items.
Multiply it by
Yeah,
a
the
zillion,
numbers are
and yeah.
astronomical. I
I can't
agree
believe
with you.
anyone would vote for Biden
Well,
after that
I mean,
withdrawal from Afghanistan.
so I think it would be great to just have a government efficiency commission that takes a look at these things and just ensures that the taxpayer money, the taxpayers' hard-earned money, is spent in a good way. And I'd be happy to help out on such a commission.
I'd love
if it were formed.
Well, you're the greatest
Mr.
cutter.
Love,
I mean, I look at what you do. You walk
all
in,
told,
you say,
this
you
interview
want
will
to quit? They go on
probably
strike.
close to
I
a
won't mention the
billion
name of the
views.
company, but they go on strike, and you say, "That's okay. You're all gone.
Not on my channel. I
You're
wish
all
it was on
gone."
my
So every
channel.
one of you is gone, and you are the greatest. You would be very good. Oh, you would love it. But if you look at Argentina.
Well, I'd be happy to help
By the way,
out.
congratulations. I
Yeah.
just looked at the number of people that are listening to you and I chat. We'll call it a chat. But congratulations. This is very good. I mean, it's great. And you're an interesting character. The new head of a place called Argentina, and he's a big,
Malay's awesome.
he's great. And
Yeah.
he's a big MAGA fan. You know that he ran on MAGA.
Swedish for views, right?
And he took it to an extreme too. He ran on MAGA, and I hear he's doing really a terrific job. It's called Make Argentina Great Again. It worked out perfectly. He came in, he bought a lot of hats, he brought everything, but he's doing a big job. He really cut. And I'm hearing they're starting to do pretty well. Inflation's getting down. They had like 2,000%. They had inflation like not normal inflation. They had the real deal. But we're going to have that pretty soon. I think we have the worst inflation we've had in 100 years. They say it's 48 years. I don't believe it. I think we have the worst. They don't include a lot of the items that should be included.
Yeah. Well, it's just from government overspending and not spending taxpayer money effectively, and having just like so many departments you can't even name them all. And what Malay is doing is he's cutting government spending. He's simplifying things. He's putting in regulations that make sense. And Argentina overnight is experiencing a giant improvement in prosperity, but it's also a lesson for the United States, which is that Argentina used to be one of the most prosperous countries in the world. In the 30s, 40s, and because of bad government policy, it ruined the country. And if you take Venezuela, for example, Venezuela should be incredibly prosperous. They have phenomenal reserves of everything, oil, everything, and it should be prosperous. But if the government's wrong,
Mr. Love, you have no idea.
The people.
That's been our entire career.
Not be
on
complacent
YouTube.
in the United States and thinking that and taking our prosperity for granted, because if with bad government policy, we can run the country into the ground. And
Argentina is apparently
that's
run
just something
entirely
people should
by
bear
the
in mind.
union.
Don't take prosperity for granted.
Well, think of education.
Haven't looked into
So we're
Argentina
ranked
in a
at
while.
the bottom of every list.
Gonna have to look into
of the
it.
top 40. We're ranked number 40, number 38.
The basic
Norway,
rule is if the mainstream media and the
Switzerland,
U.S. government
Sweden,
are telling you
different
that the
countries are
government of a
ranked
country is
good.
bad,
Actually, China's
then
pretty close to the
that
top. They're
government's
a top
probably the good
6 or
guys.
7.
I'm going to have to
But
look
we're
into it,
ranked
though. I
at the
haven't been paying
bottom,
attention.
almost at the bottom, 38, 39, 40. In other words, horrible. And yet we spend more per pupil than any other country in the world. So we spend more. And what I'm going to do, one of the first acts, and this is where I need an Elon Musk. I need somebody that has a lot of strength and courage and smarts. I want to close up Department of Education, move education back to the states, where states like Iowa, where states like Idaho, not every state will do great, because states that basically aren't doing good now. You look at Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. He's terrible. He does a terrible job. So he's not going to do great with education. But of the 50, I would bet that 35 would do great, and 15 of them, or 20 of them, will be as good as Norway. Norway is considered great. You can name them. I mean, they're so good. Some of these countries are so good. But if you go into some of these really well-run states, we have states that don't know what debt is. We have states that
Wish we
have
could see
low
them interacting.
taxes,
Video would be
no
way
debt.
cool. Yeah,
Everybody
agreed.
working. You know, they're
And
really
Spaces
well
does have a
run.
video feature for
And
the
maybe they
host.
have certain
You can
advantages in
point
terms
your
of
phone up
location,
at
in terms
you
of, you know,
and
the
show your
land or
video.
the sun,
But
the
they
sun
have
and the
to do
water and the
more.
whole thing. You know, there are a lot of advantages that some people have. But if you moved education back to the 50, you'll have some that won't do well, but they'll actually be forced to do better because it'll be a pretty bad situation. But if you think about it, you'll have some of these states. I'll bet you'd have 30, 35 states.
I think
it'll be much better. And you know what it'll
Spaces have
cost? Less
shown
than half
how much people
what it is
also
in
don't
Washington.
necessarily
And
want
these
the
people
whole
don't
video
care about
experience.
the students
You
in
can
these,
jump in like a
faraway
conference
states.
call and jump
it will
out.
be,
It's
it'll be
a very good
unbelievable.
platform.
I think you're making a good point in that if the states have to if each state has to compete against other states, then people will naturally move to states where it's better.
Well, like California, you know, as we said, it's a badly run state. I could go through. I got so many friends that are in those states, even if they're Democrats. I hate to mention certain states, but Illinois is badly run with Pritzker. He's a real loser. But you know, some of these places are just badly run. But you know, it's almost going to force them to run better, and they won't do a good at initially.
Agreed, Mr. Love.
You're not going to do worse than you're doing right now. And I would say that the cost, you would cut your cost by 50 or 60%. And you'd have a little monitor. You know, you want to make sure they're teaching English as an example. You know, give us a little English, right?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. No, but I mean, too much. I mean, some of these governors are doing so badly. I mean, they got so many people moving out of their state. They should get U-Haul Salesman of the Year award because they're driving so much U-Haul.
It's actually amazing.
It's just people moving out.
Isn't it amazing to you as a businessman that they can even survive? Like Illinois, so many people are leaving, and you wonder, how do they survive? I mean, how do they survive? I saw where you left California and you moved to Texas. Texas does a great job. But, you know, I mean, I just wonder, how do these states survive when big businesses, a big oil company just left California, as you know, and they moved to Texas. How do these big states survive when they lose so many businesses and their taxes are already really high? You know, the taxes are among the highest taxes. You almost wonder, how do they continue on? And in many cases, the governors don't do a good job in their crime-ridden places. You wonder, how do they continue to just go on? It's not a good situation.
I mean, I think the only thing that's going to force some of these states to change is if they risk bankruptcy and they're not getting bailed out by the federal government.
Right. Well,
that's the only thing that's
going
to get them to change.
You remember the area in California where they had that, where I guess somebody had sticky fingers and they stole a lot of money, and they went into a form of chapter, and it was very nasty for a period of time. But now it's probably the most popular place in all of California. So you know, at some point, something like that may have to happen. But the problem is,
thanks a lot.
You can't penalize people that loan money to the state when you have incompetent people like a Pritzker. Look, the family didn't want him in the family business.
I do that stuff all the time too.
And then he ends up being governor of Illinois. So you know what? Is he going to be a great governor? And you know, you have people. I could name every one of them. I got to know every one of these, and some are very good, and some are just horrible.
Well, I think that, I mean, the larger point here, too, you know, as you're saying, like a lot of people are concerned about the economy, a lot of people are concerned about inflation, and inflation is effectively a tax on people that save money and for
Trump
people that are working
entertainer,
day
but
to
modern
day.
speeches don't seem
It's
as epic
just
and highbrow as
a form of
historically.
taxation.
Yeah, I find it depends on which speech
solve the
you
government
catch.
spending problem, we'll solve the inflation problem, which means people will have a better standard of living, and that's.
I haven't heard
really
any
big
real
the people that got
epic
hurt
ones like
worse
from
are
the
the people
2016.
that did it the way they were taught to do it all through, you know, their younger life and their young life and their whole life. The people that saved money and then they got no interest on their money and inflation destroyed them. And frankly, they were almost better off if they didn't do anything like that. I mean, those people have been absolutely decimated, and we're going to bring those people back and help those people. We've got to get the prices down. You know, when I look at bacon costing 4 or 5 times more than it did a few years ago, when you look at some of the food products in grocery stores, people go, they can't believe it. They used to be able to buy a whole
that's the line.
Today, you know, a lot of people just don't have the money. They go in and they can't buy anything. They look at it's sticker shock. They call it sticker shock, right?
I think it really just comes, like I said, I think it just comes down to really, I guess, two things, which is that if you solve government overspending, you solve inflation, which improves living standards of the average person, and then if you deregulate, like have sensible regulations, so because a lot of the regulations are nonsensical and cause the cost to be extreme for no reason, but unless you've got effective deregulation, like Reagan did a great job on deregulation in the 80s, but it's been 40 years since we had anyone really. I mean, during your administration, we made some progress, but I think there's opportunity to make, I think, radical progress with sensible regulation. And if
Elon,
those two things, those are the big deals.
We set a record. We did more deregulation and more restrictions on all of the different businesses than any other president. Remember, I had the rule for everyone we put in, you have to get rid of 10 or 12. And we did radical cuts on all of that. And a lot of that's being put back by this administration. And we did radical cuts on things that weren't necessary. But we were all set. You know, we had the best economy ever maybe in the world. And then what happened is COVID came in and we had to focus on that. And nobody knew what it was. And I always say I got good marks on economy, good marks on military. We knocked out ISIS. We did so many different things. We rebuilt. But, you know, I never got the credit that we really deserved on what we did with COVID. We never got the credit. But had that not happened, a gift from China, from Wuhan, came in from Wuhan, the Wuhan labs, and I always said it, and it turned out to be right. But had that not happened, we were set to start reducing debt. We were going to reduce taxes further. I gave the largest tax cuts, and we were going to reduce taxes still further for middle-income people, not only businesses. But we did it for businesses because they're the ones that's why we had the great job numbers. But we were set to really start reducing debt. And, you know, we're sitting on the biggest pile of liquid gold anywhere in the world, bigger than Saudi Arabia, bigger than Russia. And we were going to drill, and we were going to make so much money. We were going to supply Europe with oil. I had stopped the Russian pipeline, and we were going to supply them with oil and gas. We were going to make a fortune. And then the COVID came in, and we really had to divert. Then what happened is when they came in, you know, we kept a lot of businesses alive. If I didn't do what we did, we would have had a 1929 type depression. But the problem is when Biden came in, he got trillions of dollars and just started spending it stupidly. You didn't need it anymore. You know, we got over that bad period where everybody was dying and feeling, you know, it was just not a good period. Interestingly, you know, during his administration, many more people died during his administration of COVID.
Mr. Love, your spelling is better than 98%
and we really got
of
the brunt
Americans
of
and
it.
Canadians. Don't
But
sweat
people
it.
don't
You're doing
realize
great.
more people died during his administration than ours. But it diverted us from doing what I wanted to do. But we had the greatest for, you know, almost 3 years. We had the great, and you know that
Elon should
probably
ask him
better
about
than anybody.
January 6th
So many
pardons.
of your
Yes.
friends said to me, the best years we've ever had in business were during the Trump years. And also said that African American, Hispanic American were so incredible. They were having the best. Asian American women, men, young people without a diploma, young people that graduated from the best colleges, from MIT, from the Wharton School, from all of the great colleges, Harvard. They were doing better, and people without a diploma were doing better, and everybody was happy. And then COVID came, and we had the problem is they spent trillions and trillions of dollars. They wasted. They shouldn't have taken any money, and we wouldn't be having inflation right now, which is killing our country.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I should. Yeah, climate change and oil and gas.
However, this is going to go.
I think probably
an absolutely
different from what most people would assume. Because my views are actually pretty, I think, moderate in this regard, which is that I don't think we should vilify the oil and gas industry and the people that have worked very hard in those industries to provide the necessary energy to support the economy. And if we were to stop using oil and gas right now, we would all be starving, and the economy would collapse. So it's, you know, I don't think it's right to sort of vilify the oil and gas industry, and I you know, the world has a certain demand for oil and gas, and it's probably better if the United States provides that than.
Just going to quickly switch to that to show you. Of course, the CIA operation, the Washington Post. Donald Trump has given no indication that he knows anything the rest of us don't already know about the explosions that damaged the Nord Stream natural gas pipelines. Despite this, he and Fox News host Tucker Carlson would very much like you to believe that the Biden administration was responsible. Okay, back to the interview.
If you just keep increasing the parts per million in the atmosphere long enough, eventually it actually simply gets uncomfortable to breathe. People don't realize this. If you go past 1,000 parts per million of CO2, you start getting headaches and nausea. And so we're now in the sort of 400 range. We're adding, I think, about roughly 2 parts per million per year. So I mean, it still gives us.
God, here we go.
We still have quite a bit of time.
No, Elon,
but
all
so
bullshit.
it's not like we don't need to rush, and we don't need to stop farmers from farming or prevent people from having steaks.
Okay, but that's
basic stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like you can leave the farmers alone.
Let them cook.
How crazy is that? Where
I mean,
you have farmers that are not allowed to farm anymore and have to get rid of their cattle, and the whole world is a little crazy. But it's largely taken its lead from us. I just say,
oh yeah, Mr. Love, for real.
In terms of
I created a YouTube
fuel,
channel called
because even
Grammar
to,
Police, just
create
because
your
I
electric
find
car
grammar
and
and
create
spelling
the
so
electricity
bad on
needed for the
YouTube.
electric car. Fossil fuel is what really creates that at the generating plants. And, so you sort of can't get away from it at this moment. I mean, someday you might be able to. But I do hear we have anywhere from 100 to 500 years left.
About the Nord Stream?
Much of it hasn't even been found yet. But there
I
are
try to keep
tremendous,
up with stuff.
like Anwar. I got Anwar in Alaska approved. Ronald Reagan couldn't do
And
it.
there
Nobody
are
could do it.
some
Everybody
search engines
tried.
that
Nobody
will
could do it.
still
I got it
return
approved.
results quickly.
The first thing that Biden did was unimprove it, to get rid of it. He ended it. His secretary went in and she ended it. And what a disgrace. That's Anwar. That's bigger, or they think it could be bigger than Saudi Arabia in Alaska. Could be bigger than Saudi Arabia. But they went in and they terminated it. And I'll get it going very quickly, because not only is it big for Alaska, I mean, you talk about economic development, that for the United States, I mean, that is, they say bigger than Saudi Arabia or the same size. And pure, really good stuff. And, they end it. So I think we have,
the businessman
perhaps
wins.
hundreds of years left. Nobody really knows.
Oil makes
But
money. We have oil.
During that time,
oil.
something will come around that will be very good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my estimate would be, a little more.
If you release this, you will go by
aggressive than that. But it's not the sort of
everybody's
like, we're
releasing
5
this.
years.
This is the biggest
stuff.
news event
that's
of
obviously
the day.
BS.
We'll do our best.
I mean, my view is like, if you just
we'll
look
do
at
our
sort of
best.
parts
Thanks,
per million that increments every year, you get sort of 2 or 3 parts per million every year of CO2. I mean, I think some of that it's problematic if it accelerates. If you start going from 2 or 3,
Good question,
to say
Benevolent.
5, and then there may be some situations where you get
more of the same,
a
which is
step
not a
change
bad
increase in the
thing.
CO2.
Right? I mean, it's not a bad thing. I think everybody
and
knows
I think
where they stand
we
with Trump.
don't want to get too close to 1,000 ppm, because that's
what I like
actually
parts
makes
per
it
million. Shut
uncomfortable
up, Elon.
to
what I like
breathe.
about
like just existing in
2020
ppm
Trump
CO2 is uncomfortable. That's like
there's a slight
that's
softening
considered
of
like
the
an
edge,
industrial hazard,
right?
Which
So
it's a good thing, because like I said, everybody knows where they stand with Trump. I'm voting for Trump already. On Trump, I'm
even without
MAGA.
global warming, it's not
But
comfortable.
a softening
So we don't want to get too close to that.
grabbing
But
just
I
maybe
mean, I think
a
we've got.
few votes.
I think we
or
want to
maybe
just move
grabbing
over
some
like
of the people that want to vote for
if,
RFK.
I don't know, 50 to 100 years from now, we're
in 2020
we're
a little bit smoother.
I don't know,
a little bit
mostly
less
sustainable. I think that'll probably be okay.
Uncouth.
So it's not like the house is on fire.
But no, I don't think we've learned anything new.
It is something we need to move towards. And on balance, it's probably better to move there faster than slower. But like
Messenger 911. Donald Trump is Jesus Christ.
and without causing.
I'm going to need a source for that.
I think this can be done.
Thanks.
Without people can still have a stake.
Now
And
he
they can
might be
still
putting in the
drive gasoline
shoes
cars,
of
and
Jesus Christ. He might
it's
be
okay.
being
It's like
put
it's
in
not.
place of
I don't think
Jesus
we should
Christ,
vilify people for it,
where
but I think we should
America's
just
and
generally lean in the
the
direction
collective
of
West
sustainability.
needs saving.
And I actually
And
think
Trump
solar is going to
could
be
be a
a
vessel
majority
through which
of Earth's energy
salvation
generation
could arrive.
in the future, and it's certainly trending that way.
But if you're
And
claiming he's
so you
actually
get the
Jesus
solar
Christ, we're
power,
going to need a source.
combine that with batteries, so because obviously the sun doesn't shine at night, and then you use that to charge the electric cars, and you have a long-term
Yeah,
sustainable
Mr. Love,
solution.
isn't this great?
And
At
that's
least you can
what Tesla is
talk,
trying to move
and
things towards, and I think we've made
no one
a
can
lot of
take it
progress
down.
in
YouTube
that
can't take
regard.
it down.
But
Google
when you look
can't
at our
take it
cars,
down. The government can't
we
take
like
it
we don't
down
believe
because
that
Elon will say
environmentalism,
"fuck
that
you." So
caring
this
about the
is—it's a
environment
wonderful
should
time.
mean that you have to suffer. So we make sure that our cars are beautiful, that they drive well, that they're fast, they're sexy. I mean, they're cool.
Yep.
In fact,
Have you
literally,
guys ever been in a
I mean, the
Tesla? They're
sexy joke,
incredible
Model S,
cars.
Model 3, Model X, and Y spells out sexy. It's probably the most expensive joke out there. But I don't know. I like cheesy humor, So, but I'm a big fan of let's have an inspiring future, and let's work towards a better future, and we can do so without demonizing
Right.
people.
I'm okay. It's very interesting. You use the word global warming, and today they use the word climate change because you have some places that go up, and so they were getting themselves in a little trouble with the word global warming because not every place is warming. Some places are going the opposite direction. But I'm sort of waiting for you to come up with solar panels on the roofs of your cars and on the trunks of the cars, and it just seems like something that at some point you will come up with. I'm sure you'll be the first. But it would seem that a solar panel on the roofs, on flat surfaces, on certain surfaces might be good.
Yeah.
At least in certain areas of the country where you have
I saw
or
some
the world
speculation that
where you
Trump
have
might
the sun.
become more humbled and
I would
introspective after
think, and I
Butler.
have no
But
idea
this
because
is
that's not
more
my world.
classic
But
Donald.
I
Yeah,
would
I'd
think
say
that this
tonight.
would be something that would be interesting. But
Yeah,
the one
agreed.
thing that I don't understand is
But
that
I
people
know
talk about global warming
the
or they talk about climate
RNC
change, but they never talk about
speeches
nuclear
afterwards,
warming.
and even his
To
speeches
me,
going
that's
into
an immediate problem
and his debate
because you have,
performance.
as I said, 5
They're more
countries where you have
civilized, a
major
little bit more
nuclear, and
diplomatic, and I
probably
thought
some
that
others
was a
are
smart
getting there, and
move.
that's
If it is a
very
move, maybe
dangerous.
he's
That's
getting
where you need
older
a strong American president because you don't want to have this
compared to
proliferation.
2016 when he was
You have
insulting Ted
5
Cruz's
countries and
wife's makeup
getting more.
and stuff.
China is much less than us right now, but they're going to catch us sooner than people think. They're way lower. Russia and us are number 1, and I mean, we're sort of tied. And China is far behind, but they're developing at a level that, you're not surprised to hear very fast. They'll end up catching up, maybe even surpassing. But to me, the biggest problem is not climate change. It's not, and everything's, a problem, but it's degrees. To me, the big problem is the nuclear power. The power of nuclear is so great. And when I talk about I'll prevent World War III, I will. But the truth is that you have to, because this is no longer army tanks going back and forth and shooting at each other. This is a level of destruction and power that nobody's ever seen before.
Yeah, and actually, there's the bad side of nuclear, which is a nuclear war, very bad side. But there's also, I think, nuclear electricity generation is underrated.
You're right.
And it's actually, people have this fear of nuclear electricity generation, but it's actually one of the safest forms of electricity generation. It's just a huge misunderstanding. And if you look at the injuries and deaths, caused by, say, I mean, I'm not going to try to pick on coal mining, but just any kind of mining operation. And there's a certain number of injuries and deaths per year. And you compare that to nuclear. Nuclear is actually way better. So it's underrated as an electricity source, and I think it's something that's worth reconsidering.
Amazing.
But there's so much regulation
Very
that
cool.
people can't get it done. So
Canada used to be one of the world leaders in nuclear.
The name is it's a rough name. There are some areas like
when
you see what happened in
bad branding.
Right,
the
we have to
branding
rebrand it. We'll have to give it a good name. We'll name it after you or something. No, it has a branding problem. When you see what happened,
it does have a branding problem.
When you see what happened in Japan, where they say you won't be able to go on the land for about 3,000 years. Did you ever see that? And in Russia, where they had the problem, where they there's a lot of bad things happened, and they have a problem. And they say that in 2,000 years, people will start to occupy the land again. you realize it's pretty bad.
No,
but
that's not true.
but you're right about it. It's amazing.
It's actually not that bad. So like after Fukushima happened in Japan, like people were asking me in California, are we worried about like a nuclear cloud coming from Japan? I'm like, no, that's crazy. It's not even dangerous in Fukushima. I actually flew there and ate locally grown vegetables on TV to prove it. And I donated a solar water treatment, a solar powered system for a water treatment plant. And
but you haven't been feeling so well lately, and I'm worried about it.
No, but I mean,
I'm only kidding.
It's fine, It's like Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed, but now they're like full cities again. So it's really not something that
That's right.
So it's not as scary as people think, basically. But let's see. I mean, are there some other topics we should touch on? Like lawfare. I think we need to be concerned about
what they've done to this country.
Obviously,
yeah. Well, we just won the big case in Florida. This was a Biden administration did something that's never been done in this country, and that's go after their political opponent, me, with this nonsense and just nonsense. And the big case in Florida we won, but they always pick a judge and a jury, and they use local DAs. They use the local
that cheap, efficient energy was the key
attorney
to lifting
generals,
people out of poverty before
like Fani,
he lost his mind.
Spelled F-A-N-I, Fani. And
I love
it's
Jordan
all
Peterson.
a big hoax,
I got
and it's
no
all
problems
run
with
from
Jordan
there,
Peterson.
like in
He's
Manhattan.
just a guy. I think when people
one of the
he's
top
a
people
savior,
from the Justice
then they get
Department went
horribly
in, ran
disappointed when
Manhattan,
he
ran the
acts
state.
differently
The
or
Letitia James
strangely.
deal was
He's
run
obviously a
by
fragile
a person
dude
from the Department
with
of
a lot
Justice.
of shoulders. So I don't
They've
hold
never
against
done
him.
this
But
before,
anyway,
and they set
cheap,
up
efficient
a
energy
very
is
bad
the key
precedent.
to lifting people out of
It's
poverty.
called
That's
lawfare, warfare.
that's objectively correct.
It's a terrible thing, and never happened in our country. It does happen in banana republics and third world countries, but it's never happened.
And I just finished a documentary
the incredible
for
thing is
Matthew
it actually
Ehret
drove my
and
numbers up because people
CanadianPatriot.org
see, fortunately I
that
have a
shows a perfect
platform
example of
like
this
you, or
and how the world could be a
in all
much
fairness,
better
like a
place
conversation like
if
this,
we just got
where I can
energy
talk
to,
about it and people understand.
Africa
I mean,
and such.
you fight for election integrity and you end up getting indicted because you're fighting for election integrity. And when the day comes that you can't fight for election integrity, you don't have a country anymore.
Yeah, Little House. Not
so
saying there's no sand.
what happens is
but
they went
I used
after
to
their
visit up
political
here
opponent,
from Ottawa to visit rain up
Biden's,
here for the last 15 years.
close to
every
vegetable stage, in
year
my
or
opinion.
two,
Okay, I looked at
and we
him today
go
on
and
the
just
beach, and I said, why would
salmon
anybody
out of
allow
Dalton
him?
Post
The guy could
in
barely
Haines,
walk.
Alaska.
Why would anybody
and then
allow
after
him?
Fukushima,
Does he have a political advisor
it was
that
a
thinks
slog.
this looks good?
You maybe get like
he
2
thinks
fish
this
in a
looks
day
good
if you're
because
lucky.
it looks so bad, and it's ridiculous. I mean, and he's been doing that for a long time. He can't lift the chair. The chair weighs about 3 ounces. It's meant for children and old people to lift, and he can't lift
saying
it.
that Fukushima
The
caused
whole
it.
thing is crazy.
Well, he's clearly.
saying,
he's clearly.
I'm not
like,
saying
we
it's
just don't have a
aliens.
president right
You
now.
don't
That's
have a
just honestly
president,
But
and
it's
she's going to be worse than him because she is a San Francisco liberal who destroyed San Francisco, and then as Attorney General, she destroyed California. You talk about location, and we're talking about the sun and the water and all. There's nothing better than California. She has destroyed that. She was the original DA. She was the original in San Francisco. She was the original Attorney General in California. What she has done to California is, well, you know better than I do. You just left California for a lot of those reasons. And what she's done with crime, with cashless bail, where you kill somebody. I mean, we have states now you kill somebody and they let you out right away. I mean, you don't have to even put up, and then they never find the people unless they kill again, and then they let them out again. Our country is becoming a very dangerous place, and she is a radical left San Francisco liberal, and now she's trying to protect. Now she's looking like she wants to be more Trump than Trump, if that's possible. I don't think it's possible, but she wants to be more Trump than Trump.
Yeah.
I want a wall.
I think that's.
She wants to release all the prisoners that are in detention, and some of these guys are really bad.
Right.
That just came out today. She doesn't want to build the wall, even though the walls work. Walls and wheels. In your business, everything you do is obsolete. Almost, well, not the tunnels, but everything is obsolete. Even your rocket ships, they're like a month later, they're obsolete. You find a better way to. The only thing that's not obsolete is a wall and a wheel. And the wall, I built hundreds of miles of wall, and that's why we had such good numbers. I was going to add 200 miles We bought it. We could have flipped it up in 3 weeks, and they sold it for 5 cents on the dollar. That meant, I said, wow, that means that they actually do want to have open borders. She wants to have open borders, and now she's going like she's tough on the border. It's such a lie.
Yeah, this is simply not true. This is simply not true.
And everybody knows
it's
it's not true. It's a disgrace that she can say it.
No, I mean, obviously, what's
Kamala's gonna be
happening
tough
sort
on
of
the border
overnight is they're
and make all
rewriting
illegal
history
immigrants
and,
citizens
and
the
making
first day of her
Kamala
office.
sound like a moderate when in fact she is far left, like far left.
Worse than Bernie Sanders. She is considered more liberal by far than Bernie Sanders. She's a radical left lunatic, and if she's going to be our president, very quickly you're not going to have a country
Left
anymore.
lunatic.
And she'll go back to all of the things that she believes in. She believes in defunding the police. She believes in no fracking, zero. You don't. Now all of a sudden she's saying, "No,
I'd like to hear more policy
really want to see
specifics.
fracking."
Isn't as simple
The
as the
day, if they got in, the day she got in,
that's
and
why
fracking.
I'm here.
And by the way, if
It's
people
what I've
didn't think
enjoyed
that,
with
the lunatics
one-on-one interviews
that
with
really
Trump, is
believe
that
in
you
that,
can usually get a little deeper.
they won't vote for her. You know, like the
Like Tim
Palestinians
Pool
and
kept
Israel.
forcing
She
him
is
to answer if he
so
would
anti-Israel, and she's bad for both. Biden actually did
Assange.
something that was impossible. Both sides hate him. You know, both sides. That was a hard thing to do. Unification.
Yeah, no. I mean, Netanyahu came to give a talk to a joint Senate and House, and I was there, and Kamala stood him up. You know, what does that say?
I think it's highly disrespectful. And I say, if you're a Jewish person or if you believe in Israel, if you're a person that, you know, is a very pro-Israel, if you vote for her, it's worse than Biden. And Biden was bad. But if you vote for her, you ought to have your head examined. And you see tonight, I mean, as we're doing this, I'm seeing reports coming that they expect an attack tonight or tomorrow from hundreds and maybe thousands of rockets. You know, their Iron Dome, as they call it, as we all call it, but their shield that they build, that can be swamped. We'll use the term that's appropriate, swamped. But they swamp it by shooting enough missiles. You know this better than anybody. By shooting enough missiles, they can't defend themselves. You know, they just obliterate the whole place. And that's what some people think they're looking to do. And we have no leadership. There's no respect for the United States of America with these people. And I'm telling you, she'll be worse than him because she's a believer in being radical left, and he wasn't.
I think you're right. I mean, you really, it's important for the public that may be listening to this to look at Kamala's track record, you know, before the last month, and say, is that a track record you agree with? And I think if you're an independent moderate, you definitely would not agree with it, because it is her behavior has been far left, and we're seeing just an overnight propaganda attempt to rewrite history and make it sound like Kamala's moderate when she in fact is not moderate.
Well, her running mate approved, signed into legislation, tampons in boys' bathrooms. Okay. Now that's all I have to hear.
I'm not sure what
tampons in boys'
Elon's
bathrooms.
deal is,
And that means she believes in that too. I mean,
like evangelical
she picked this
levels
guy
of bonkers
because he was the
over
closest to her.
Israel.
A lot of people
Not
thought she
sure
picked
what's
sort of
up
the
there.
opposite, but she picked an anti-Israel radical left person. But she is far worse, they say, than Bernie Sanders. If we have her as a president, if we have a Democrat at this moment as a president, I don't think our country can survive.
I think it's a massive. I think we're in massive trouble, frankly, with the Kamala administration, and that's my honest opinion.
You think?
And I think really it's essential that you win for the good of the country.
It will be
this election,
full
and I mean that's
Justin
understating my
Trudeau
opinion
in America if they vote for her.
You know, you may have seen this, but I got a letter from the EU Commission, saying, you know, to not have disinformation on during this discussion that we're having, and you know, there's a lot of attempts to do censorship and to force censorship even on Americans from other countries, and you know, what do you think about that?
Well, I know the European Union very well. They take great advantage of the United States in trade, as you know. We, through a different forum, NATO, We protect them, and yet if
Why are not
you
more
build a
people
car
here
in the
to listen
United
to the
States, you
interview
can't sell it
of the
in Europe. You
century?
just can't sell it.
Mr. Love, it's
impossible.
because we're
The
a
same
tiny
thing with our
Canadian
farmers. Our
channel.
farmers find it very difficult to do business. You know,
that
we have a deficit with them of
I mostly make
$250 billion,
films
which people don't know. It sounds so
people that
nice,
are
the
on our
European
side of
Union,
the
but let me
political
tell you,
spectrum.
they're
And I stream when I
not as
can,
tough as
and I
China,
do
but
what
they're
I
bad.
can
And
on
I let them know
Rumble
it.
and YouTube.
And
They're
that's
very
probably why
small.
they
So what you're
notified you.
watching right
No, they
now
don't
is
treat
just a
our country
tiny
well.
Canadian
We defend them,
Rumble channel
with
showing the
Ukraine.
biggest
So
interviews in
we're in for
history.
250 billion, and
There are
they're in
plenty
for
of
about
people that are going to
71
show
billion,
this
and
and
they
get
have the same
hundreds of
size.
millions of
If
views.
you add
So
up the European
don't worry
nations
about it.
that,
But it
in
will be a
terms of
nice
an
boost for
economy,
us, I'm
it's about
sure.
the same size.
But I'm
You say as
mostly
us.
doing this
And
because a lot
they're
of
in,
people on our
they're in
side
much
are
greater
older.
risk.
They don't like Twitter because Twitter
They're
used to
right
be
there. We have an
woke
ocean separating us
censorship.
from,
So I'm just
in this
streaming
case, the
it
enemy
for
would be
friends
Russia.
and
It used
family
to be for the
and
Soviet
loved
Union,
ones
but
and
let's
cool
assume
people that
they're
don't have
close
Twitter,
enough.
so
And
they
what
can listen.
happens is they're in for 70 something million. I think even less than that, billion, and we're in for about 250 billion, and it could be a lot higher than
Agreed,
that.
benevolent.
And I say, why aren't you going to equalize? Why aren't they paying what we're paying? And they're in much more, it's much more important for them because of the fact that, they're right near there. I mean, they're all sort of in that location. We're not. But they should, and I did it with NATO. There were only 7 countries that were paid up in NATO out of 28 at the time. And the United States was the United States was subsidizing NATO, tremendously subsidizing NATO. And I said, I went in and I said, you got to pay up. If you don't pay up, we're not going to defend you any longer. I took a lot of heat, but you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in. And
I think a lot of the public
so
isn't aware of the fact that the United States pays a disproportionate share of the NATO expenses.
And then we get taken
like,
advantage of on trade. So think about it.
Well, I mean, the point of NATO is defending Europe, and it's it's like, then okay, well, why is the United States paying disproportionately more to defend Europe than Europe? That doesn't make sense. That's unfair, and that is an appropriate thing to address.
Well, when you talk about cost cutting and savings and everything else, I mean, honestly, look, there's nobody that feels worse about the Ukraine situation than I do, because I know it would have never happened. I know Zelensky. He was very honorable to me, because when they went with the Russia hoax and they said I had a phone call with him, he said it was a perfect phone call. It was a great phone call. He could have grandstanded and, said, oh, he was very threatening. He said, no, it was a very nice phone call. I called him up to congratulate him on his win, and you end up getting impeached because these people are lunatics. I was talking about the difference from the people within and the enemies on the outside. In many cases, the people from within are more dangerous for our country than the Russians and the Chinas. If you have a smart president, you're not going to have a problem with them. You're going to do things.
Yeah.
Now, they've taken advantage of
absolutely.
us incredibly, but you're going to do things with the right person.
Yeah, well, I think it's obvious that you're a believer and an advocate of free speech, because during your first term as president,
Canada's
you
still
were
not meeting
attacked
2%
relentlessly
of
every day,
GDP
often
NATO
very unfairly
target.
with
Not
false
meeting
attacks.
2% of
And you didn't try
our
to shut down
target?
the media. You didn't try to
Sounds about
inhibit
right.
their freedom of speech. And I think
Preach
that
all
says a
day
lot.
long about
Well, the good
NATO
thing is
and
that
back
you and
Ukraine,
I
but
have,
not actually
and some
spend the
people,
money.
very few,
But then
we
we're
can get the
secretly
word out.
sending billions to
Although
the
sometimes it's
Ukraine.
hard
Oh,
because they don't
God.
want to print it, like we're having a great conversation right now. Kamala wouldn't have this conversation. She can't, because she's not smart. She's not a smart person, by the way. She can't have this
By the way.
conversation. And Biden, we don't even have to talk about it. I mean, he couldn't have this conversation. He would have given up on the first half of a question. He would have walked out. He would have said, where am I? Where am I going? So anyway, but no, he wouldn't have this.
That's true.
Not a lot of people would have this conversation, but we
You
cover a
guys
lot
see
of
that
territory.
video where
But
Biden
the beauty is that
accidentally
we can
got
have
on
a conversation,
plane
and
when he's walking with
I'm able to get
Kamala
it out
Harris,
without, because I get
and he
treated
wasn't supposed
unfairly.
to be on the
really
plane.
big point. You can actually have a conversation with you.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it?
And you can't have a conversation with Biden or Kamala. It's like it's not possible.
That's
This is like talking to an NPC.
No.
So it's just impossible.
Well, but think of it. We need a man or person
Yeah, little house.
who's unbelievably sharp
like to
in
see
order
their
to stop
faces. I can
all the
only
nuclear
imagine
danger and
Elon's
all the
dick.
dangers that I'm talking about. And I got along with all these. I got along with Kim Jong-un. We had dinner, we had everything, and he really liked me, and I got along with him really
wonder
well.
what
By the
Trump
way,
ate at that dinner.
he's the absolute boss over there. A lot of people said, "Oh, do you think he really?"
That's for
Let me
sure.
tell you, I saw things that you don't want to know about. He is the boss. But we had a good relationship, and he doesn't like Biden. He considers him a stupid man. He said he's a stupid man. Well, at least he speaks his mind. But in this country, you're not sort of allowed to say it, but I guess you are. You should be allowed to say it if it's true. But we need smart people, and we need people that have an ability to lead. And she doesn't have that ability. Can you imagine? Now, Chairman Xi very well. Can you imagine her and him negotiating, or
God, no.
even
silly.
standing together? It is, the whole concept is ridiculous. She is terrible. She's terrible. But she's getting a free ride. I saw a picture of her on Time Magazine today. She looks like the most beautiful actress ever to live. It was a drawing. And actually, she looked very much like our great First Lady, Melania. She didn't look like Camilla. That's right. But of course, she's a beautiful woman. So
I feel
we'll leave it
for
at that.
Melania so much. She
She
is the most beautiful
part of what
and fashionable
people in America want
first lady in American history.
Excited and inspired about the future.
She's had her image, and she can't. No one can celebrate her because she's associated with the Nazi Hitler Trump. It's so sad
that make
for
you
her.
proud to be an American and excited about the future.
They want the American dream back. They want the American dream back. More important than anything else. It's like.
Whoa,
you don't have that today because the people, they've been just
quartering
sucked. They
played
see
Las
incompetent
Vegas
people
emergency
running
medical
our
system dispatch audio today
the Biden
proving
thing is very
they
interesting.
closed
People
the
just
streets
found him
for
to
a
be
Biden medical
incompetent.
emergency.
And when I
on
debated
Air Force
him,
One shortly
I was
before I
like,
stepped down. I remember that
is this
time
for real?
frame.
It was.
That was the whole thing when everyone was like, "Is he dead?"
But I think there are like some grand projects that we could do. I mean,
It's just
I think,
a cruelty that he was allowed to be
we
president.
could build a base on the moon. We could send American astronauts to Mars. We could build high-speed connections that are more advanced than anything else in the world between our cities, so people have fast transport. It's possible to solve traffic with tunnels. We've already made great progress in Vegas doing that, and and just do things that are exciting and inspiring and make the future feel like it's better than the past.
Well, I saw what you did in Vegas, and I'll tell you, it was amazing. I got to see. I took a big glimpse at it, and it's incredible. It's incredible, and you could do that all over. It's deep.
Yeah,
you don't even need much structure. Assuming you're in the right area.
No, it's straightforward.
It's amazing.
So I think we could do some things that like China's got incredible high-speed rail between its cities, but I think it's actually possible with tunnels if with deregulation, with an ability to actually where it's like legal to actually do the tunnel. You could have high-speed tunnels that are better than anything else in the world for high-speed transport between cities, and that would be something that Americans can say, wow, okay, we've got something that's cooler than anyone else in the world. That's a thing that makes you proud to be an American.
Safer than surface trains, where there is a danger there, with crazy people. It's much safer, much better. And it's sad because I've seen some of the greatest trains. I find it fascinating. And I've seen the systems and how they work, and the bullet trains, they call them, I guess. And they go unbelievably fast, unbelievably comfortable, with no problems. And we don't have anything like that in this country, not even close. And it doesn't make sense that we don't. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and I think also there's I'm kind of hopping on the excess regulation, but I think something that I think people can generally understand is that what happens with laws and regulations is that there's more and more of them every year, and unless there's a process to clean them up, eventually everything becomes illegal, and that actually it slows down the development of new technologies. I mean, if you take the sort of I think there's room for some reform at the FDA for
was my mic off
with which we
for the read?
Approve drugs that could help save lives and improve people's lives. And
I worked very hard on that. We got that down to the lowest number ever, and we got therapeutics approved in the FDA.
Oh yeah, the Loomer thing.
People can't even believe the speed. But I took them on. I don't think they like me too much, but I got things approved in the FDA at numbers that they wouldn't believe. And, you know, it's a very bureaucratic group. Actually, it's
Was
a
it Loomer that
fine group
started
of
the
people in
rumor that
many cases.
Biden
I
was
got to know a
dead?
lot of them, but I was pushing them
I
really
never
hard
bought it.
for
I thought it was
Regeneron, for
ridiculous.
so many different things.
It was interesting,
that
but
were really
ridiculous.
pretty amazing. But the FDA
If you're
takes
referring
too
to the Laura
long.
Loomer story from a
It's
few
12
weeks
years to
ago,
get a product
you do
approved. I
know
got it
that
down to 4, and
AF1
I got some things done very
has a
quickly.
full
But
medical suite
it's
and
really something
OR
that
in it.
is going to have to be worked on
Explain that a
because it
little bit
takes
more,
too
North.
long. Just takes too long.
Yeah,
I
it
don't
just
know
takes
what
too long, and
AF1
it's
is.
you end up in the same
Full
with
medical
the approval,
suite
but it's
and
just
operation
it takes
room.
years instead of something that I think could potentially take
Yeah.
months, and that improves people's lives. And I
Yeah.
think I just wanted to hop on this point that like there has to be an active process for reducing rules and regulations, because otherwise they just keep building up every year, and you get like hardening of the arteries, and eventually everything's illegal or takes forever, and then we just we just ossify as a society. We can't make any progress, and that's it's a really big
Well,
deal.
you know, Elon, just
So
getting back to the FDA for 1 second, I got something done called Right to Try. This is where you can go in, and if you're terminally ill, you can use a space age, medicine or whatever it may be. We have the best doctors, the best labs in the world. We really do. But people would go to other countries because you couldn't use the product, even if they thought it worked, because it's going through the FDA. I got it approved where you can, you basically, look, nobody wanted, the doctors didn't want it because of the liability. The country didn't want it, our country, because they didn't want to get sued. These are people terminally ill. The insurance companies didn't want it, and the pharmaceutical companies, nobody wanted it. I got everybody into a room, and we came up with an agreement that you won't get sued. And also, they didn't want it on their record. If somebody's terminally ill and they die after taking a drug, they didn't want that on their record. So we set a separate list. If somebody was, so it wouldn't count as a negative. Okay. And as you know, we got it done. We have saved Right to
But the
Try.
Emergency
They've
Medical
been trying to get
Services
this
audio
done for
release has the cops
58
talking about
years.
closing
And
off
it sounds
every
simple, but it
intersection
wasn't, because
between Air Force
I
One
mean,
and the
the insurance
hospital
companies, nobody
and Secret
wanted it,
Service Request.
but we got it
Yeah,
done.
so
Somebody signs, you
I'm not
sign a
exactly
document that
aware
you're not
of
going to
the
sue the insurance
details
companies,
around
the
what you're
country, you're not
talking
going to sue
about,
anybody.
but this is the
And we
least
got it done, and we're
surprising thing I've
saving
heard
tens of thousands of
since,
lives.
you know,
Right
they
to Try.
allowed
Hopefully you never need it,
males
but
to
if
beat
you
up
do,
women at the
you don't have
Olympics.
to travel
This
to
is
Asia. You know, people, if they had money, they go to Asia,
I
they go to
assume
Europe.
the guy
If
is
they don't have money,
probably
they go home and
died
die.
3
That's what
times since he
happened. They
was in
go home
office.
and die.
Well, I mean, and actually, to give Europe some props here, it's like if a drug is approved in Europe, which has a crazy amount of regulations, it should obviously be approved in the U.S.
Yeah.
I mean, they get more regulations than we do. So why would a drug be approved in Europe and not in the U.S.? That's crazy.
Well, we did it. We did something that really, they've been trying to do it for 50 years, and they just couldn't get it done, and I got it done. And it's really something. But you're right. Some people go to Europe because a drug isn't approved here, but it's approved in Europe, and it's a drug that, generally speaking, would work. It's pretty crazy.
Absolutely.
You're right.
And I think so as long as people are properly informed of the pros and cons, and like these are the risks, these are this is the risk, and like you make your own decision. That makes sense.
Well, I think just, in sort of closing up, and by the way, I'm looking at the numbers. You got a lot of people listening. I hope you don't get nervous, because you got a lot of people listening to you right now, like 60 million or something. What is that number? It's crazy. It's amazing how you can see that right away. How many? What is the number? Wow. What is it?
Well,
wow.
I think in terms of people
that's bigger than you said. You said 25, and you're much more than double that number, 25 million. I think you're going to be 60 or 70. And I guess over a period of time, hey, I congratulate you. Do I get paid for this or not?
Well, I think actually in terms of the number of people that will hear this conversation over the next few days, weeks, it's going to be hundreds.
That's what they say. Yeah, that's good. Well, look, it's an honor. But I just asked this: are you better off now, or were you better off when I was president? Nobody's better off now. People, we put out polls on that, and nobody's better off now. Inflation has killed it. And, they also feel very unsafe. You look at what's going on with a lot of different things. You look at the riots we had at
Yeah.
the colleges over, I mean, it's ridiculous, but all of the riots, they just feel unsafe. And now they really feel unsafe because you have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. I call it Biden migrant crime. I call it Kamala migrant crime. But
you know, I mean, with all these things, I always try to get to the ground truth by just asking people. And, you know, my mom lives in New York, and I was like, you know, Mom, you know, do you know, have any of your friends, you know, been attacked or assaulted? And she said, yeah, 3 of her friends in 3 separate incidents were assaulted just in recent months, just walking around the streets of New York. And I said, well, what happened to the people that assaulted them? Oh, nothing. They got away. Like, and they just know
they always get away.
Nothing's going. And they don't even bother reporting it because they know that they're not going to, you know, people are not going to get prosecuted. They just let, you know, violent criminals out in New York.
The only one that gets prosecuted is Donald Trump. They prosecute Trump.
Yeah, I mean, it's just obviously messed up.
Oh, it's terrible.
If violent criminals are getting off scot-free, and meanwhile the you know, New York spending massive resources prosecuting you, and it's like, what's this, you know? And I think the sort of sensible public looks at this and says, what the heck's going on here? This is obviously abuse of the legal system. You know, the legal system is supposed to be protecting the public from violent criminals, and it should be obviously allowing the public to make their own decision about who should be president, as opposed to, you know, some you know, legal case.
One this precedent, because this can go on with the next one. I mean, this is a very bad precedent what they're doing in terms of, you know, going after their political opponent, and that's all it is. It's going after their political opponent, and then you get a judge who's, you know, a strong Democrat, and I'm being nice when I say that. In many cases, crooked as hell. But you get a judge, and you go into an area where a Republican gets 3 or 4% of the vote, and, you know, you'll have a jury pool with people that hate Republicans or hate. It could also be the other way, though, because it could start the other way in areas where they hate Democrats, and you get into a Pandora's box. It's a very dangerous thing for this country, and a very dangerous thing even for the state. New York City is losing. New York City and state lose a lot of business over what they did to me, because these people say, we don't want that to happen to us. It's no justice system. You have an unfair system of justice, and it's costing New York State a tremendous amount of money. People are leaving and companies are leaving, and they won't come back. So, you know, all of that stuff is important, but the economy now is the big thing, and we can turn that economy up so fast, and people are going to be back again. We're going to get rid of inflation.
I think there's a lot of opportunity.
Right. Absolutely.
So,
and I just want to congratulate you. You've done an amazing job. You have definitely got a fertile mind. You know, we can talk. You and I can talk about rockets.
Well, it's kind of you to say. Thank you.
Tunnels. We can talk about tunnels and rockets and electric cars. So many things. And now you're into the AI, and that's going to be another beauty, I'll say. So it's an amazing thing you've done, Elon. It's an amazing thing, and I congratulate you.
I mean, thank you. And well, I mean, I just say here, you know, here's to an exciting, inspiring future that people can look forward to and be optimistic and excited about what happens next. And that's the kind of future that I think you will bring as president, and that's why I endorse you.
Well, I appreciate that. That endorsement meant a lot to me. Not all endorsements mean that much, to be honest. Your endorsement meant a lot. And, you know, we have a phrase, make America great again. It's pretty simple, but it really says that we want to make America great again. And we can do it. We can do it now. But if we were going to suffer another 4 years like we've suffered for the last 4 years, I'm not sure the country can ever come back. That's how bad it is. It's so bad. We have to do a lot of things.
I think that's a very real risk.
Yeah, it's a big risk.
That's a very real risk.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, I'd just like to note to people listening, like I've not been very political before, and if you look at my record, I've actually been, I'm not like, sometimes they try to paint me as like a far right guy, which is absurd, because I'm like making electric vehicles and, you know, solar and helping the environment.
That what was billed as a candidate
and I actually
standard political talk.
You know,
I feel you on
supported
that.
Obama. I stood in line for 6 hours to shake Obama's hand when he was running president, and
a couple guys,
so it's not like I'm like some
out.
sort of dyed-in-the-wool long-term Republican. I'm actually,
I hope there's a part two.
You know, historically a moderate Democrat, but now I feel like
some reactions.
We're really at a critical juncture for the country.
Maybe he'll go in a little deeper.
And
But
I
feels
think
like
a
you
lot of
guys
people
is kind
thought,
of like
the Biden
they know they
administration would be
agree
a moderate
on shit,
administration, but
and
it's
they
not.
just kind of
And
having a
obviously,
friendly
but
conversation.
we're
But it
just going to
doesn't
see
feel like a piercing interview
an even
at
further
all.
left
And by
administration
now, if it
with
was me
Kamala.
interviewing Trump,
That's my honest
we'd either
opinion.
be
I mean, her dad
into
is literally.
exactly
I
what
mean,
you're
she was
going
brought
to
up as
do in
as
year
an actual. Her
2,
dad
or he'd have
Marxist. That's you can Google it. I mean, it's not a. We're not brought up. So, and we want to have a future prosperous. I think we're just at a critical juncture, and I think this is a case of the America is going to at a fork in the road, and I think it will take if the path to, like you are the path to prosperity, and I think Kamala is the opposite. Then that's my honest opinion. I'm gonna get attacked like crazy, and I've also experienced quite a bit of lawfare myself, but I'm just trying to tell people my honest opinion, and I haven't been really active in politics before, and I'm just trying to point out that my track record historically has been moderate, if not moderate, slightly left, and so this is to people out there who are in the moderate camp to say I think you should support Donald Trump for president. And I think it's actually a very important junction in the road, and we're in deep trouble if it goes the other way.
Well, I want to thank you, and I actually always did think of you as somewhat left. I must say that. So it's
Yeah.
even more of an honor to have your endorsement. I know how strong you feel about it. But when you think of her, San Francisco, 15 years ago, she said it's the greatest city in America, and it's almost not livable there. And California likewise. And she was involved in the destruction of San Francisco and the destruction of California. And she will be involved in the destruction of our country if people are so unwise as to elect her.
Isn't San
And I hope
Francisco where
that
you can
doesn't
download
happen.
a
And I hope
phone
the
app that
elections are
shows
going to
you
be
where
run
the human
honestly.
feces is?
And we're going to turn this country around. We're going to do things and we can do it fairly quickly. And we have to get rid of the criminals that have been, given to us by other countries as they laugh. They laugh at us. They think we're stupid to accept these people. These are radical, stone cold killers in many cases and terrorists. And they're in our country by the hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
And we have to take them out.
Yeah. I mean, if I could summarize it, perhaps, I think these are issues that I think most people in America would agree with, which is that we want safe and clean cities, we want secure borders, we want sensible government spending, we want to restore both the perception and reality of respect in the judicial system, just stop the lawfare, and I think that's like, and how are those even right-wing positions? I think those are that's common sense, and that's I mean, would you agree with that?
100%. I don't understand, the whole, they call it progressive. They don't like the word liberal anymore, but call it liberal or progressive. I don't understand how somebody could say that it's okay for them to empty prison into our country. And again, I told you, their crime rates all over the world are going way down. Which makes sense. In fact, the next time what we'll do is if something happens with this election, which would be a horror show, we'll meet the next time in Venezuela because it'll be a far safer place to meet than our country. Okay, so we'll go. You and I will go, and we'll have a meeting and dinner in Venezuela because that's what's happening. Their crime rates coming down, and our crime rates going through the roof. And it's so simple. And you haven't seen anything yet because these people have come into our country and they're just getting acclimated. And they don't know about being politically correct law enforcement or lack of law enforcement. And our police, I have to just end with this. We have great police. We have great law enforcement, but they're not allowed to do their job. They have to be able to do their job without being destroyed.
Make sure we're following it.
Absolutely, and it's obviously demoralizing if you're a police officer risking your life to arrest violent criminals who could kill you and do kill you sometimes, and then you arrest the violent criminal, and then the DA doesn't prosecute, and that's let the guy out. Well, then like why should a police officer risk their life to arrest a violent felon?
Well, even worse, Elon,
nothing's going to happen.
Even worse, they prosecute the police officer. They go after it and they prosecute the police officer, and they take away his pension, they take away his job, He loses his family. He loses his house.
Well, I thought it was very telling, like incredibly telling, that when there was that case where sort of a gang of thugs beat up police officers. I think it was in Times Square in New York, and then nothing happened to those guys. They were let out, zero bail, and I think a bunch of them were given free tickets to California. Well, what is I mean, that is a gross indignity against the United States, and that's how, I mean, this is insane. Like, have we lost all pride? How can such a thing be allowed to occur?
I've never seen anything. We see where they get shot. It's a very dangerous profession, but it's something they're very proud of, and they want to be able to do their job. But I've seen them get shot. I've seen a lot of things, but I've never seen where these guys are standing in the middle of a big street, everybody watching them, and they're literally boxing, like punching, stand up fighting a police officer. There were two of them.
Okay,
and you had about 6 of these guys, and they're punching the hell out of them. And in their own country, they would be dead if they did that. They'd be shot. They would be shot instantly.
Channel.
And they come from these countries, and it's taking them a while to realize that we don't do that in this country. But in their own country, if they stood on a street and had a fight with a police officer, they would be shot. There's no political correctness, and it's such a sad. It's such a sad thing to see, and that's the reason you have crime, by the way, because we don't do anything.
Little house. Girl,
we just
go to the
cannot
store,
have a
get your
situation
beer.
where our police officers
They're obviously not going to get too deep tonight.
By
and the whole
gang of illegal immigrants, and then nothing happens to the guys that beat up the cops. I mean, and they're let out.
Later. Go get your beer.
Unacceptable.
Well, we're going to change it, and we're going to get them out of the country. When I first got involved, they said you couldn't get them back to these countries. You couldn't take them back. In the case of
I have 2 beers. I know I'm going to drink them.
El Salvador, some others.
40
you
minutes
couldn't get them back. And I said, really? Oh,
so
you can't get them back. Because under Obama, he couldn't get them back. They'd fly them in, and they'd put planes on the runways in these countries so you couldn't land a plane. They'd bring them back. And the general told me, we can't bring them back. The countries won't accept MS-13 gang members. They won't accept them.
I'm going to say,
and I said, really, how much do we pay these various countries
2 hours later,
in terms of economic aid, which is also somewhat ridiculous? And the answer was $750 million. I said, good. Tell them they're in default. They're delinquent. We're not paying them anymore because they won't accept it. And you know what happened? They all called me, every one of them.
No, for real, benevolent.
We would be honored.
You've been looking for something in depth. You've been looking for details.
It's one of those things. And we got it back. We took in so many. MS-13 is probably the worst gang
but how
in the world. They're the most
and that's where I am too.
We took them out of here by the thousands and got them out of here. And their countries took them back. And because I said, you're not getting any more economic aid. And once I said that, they were nice. They wouldn't take them back for Obama. They wouldn't take them back for anybody. And now we have a problem because we have this guy, and they don't take them back anymore with Biden because they don't respect him.
It's just gotta be done. We just can't have whether they're citizens or not citizens. We can't have, because they won't prosecute citizens either, not just illegals. So if it's, you can't have repeat violent offenders that are not that don't get incarcerated.
That's right.
Because they will obviously, by definition, continue to hurt people. And I think where part of this comes from is that there's and I do sort of consider myself liberal in some ways. I mean, it's just that you want to have empathy for people. Obviously, you want to have empathy for people. I totally agree with that. You want to have empathy, but you also have to have empathy for the victims of the criminals. And if you just have empathy for the criminals, it's actually shallow empathy. It's not real. You're not thinking. You're one layer deep empathy. You got to say, like, what if you don't incarcerate this person? Who are they going to hurt? Who are they might kill someone. They might rape someone. If you don't incarcerate them, you have to have empathy for the victims. And there's a lack of empathy for the victims of the criminals, and too much empathy for the criminals. It doesn't make sense. That's why you want to have deep empathy for society as a whole, not shallow empathy for criminals.
Right. And we have to give our police officers the dignity and the respect that they deserve. And we have to let them do their job. They can do a great job, but we have to let them do their job. And if we don't do that, it's going to all It's going to all disappear. There's never been a society like this where you're allowed to do anything you want and nothing happens. And I'm talking about violent crime. And it's going to get more violent because these are really, really violent people. And we're going to get them out of our country, and we're going to get them back to where, because they were sent here by the presidents and by the various people that run those countries. And I know every one of those guys. And they're smart people, and they're streetwise people. And they really think that the USA is stupid. They think we're run by stupid people, and they happen to be right. But when I was there, we had no problem. We got them out. We took out thousands of MS-13 gang members. We brought them back. And now, again, it's the same old story. We don't do it. And they actually gave them a big increase in aid. They raised it up to billions of dollars, and they get nothing for it. So, you know, I hope everybody's going to vote for Trump, and we're going to get this country straight.
Yeah.
And I didn't need this. I'm like you. I didn't need this. I had a very nice life. I didn't need to go through court systems and go through all the other stuff and run at the same time. I have to run. I have to go through fake trials with, in some cases, corrupt judges, totally corrupt judges. I didn't need it. I had a nice life. I have great locations. I have beautiful oceans that I have places. But I felt it was important. And if I had to do it over again, you probably think I'm crazy for doing it, actually. But if I had to do it over again, I would have done it over again, because this is so much more important than me or my life. We're going to save this country. This country is going down. And these people are bad people that we're running against, and they're liars. They make statements. They do things that are so bad. They say they're going to make a strong border. They say they've been great on the border, and they've been the worst in history. They say they're going to stop crime.
Like, the facts speak for themselves.
It's so incredible.
Speak for themselves. Like it's gotten to the point where people just don't even bother reporting crime in a lot of cities because they know nothing is going to happen. That's what I hear anecdotally from people all the time. So it's just my values. I'm just saying to people out there, like the things I think are important for the future is like we've got to have safe cities, we've got to have secure borders, we've got to have sensible spending, and we've got to have deregulation, and so we can have a prosperous future. And then we want to have some exciting, sort of moonshot projects that people can get fired up about. And that's the future I'm looking for. And I'm pro environment, but I'm not against. I'm not like I don't think we should vilify the oil and gas industry because they're keeping civilization going right now. And but I do think we want to move at a reasonable speed towards a sustainable energy economy. Those are my values, and I think and so I mean that's why I'm supporting you for president.
Well, I appreciate it. We're going to give incentive to companies to come into our country, not to leave our country. We're going to be giving tremendous incentives. We want companies to build here, not to build in other locations. And we want to create jobs. And again, it's about the American dream. You don't hear about the American dream anymore, Elon. You don't hear. You're the American dream in the truest sense, but you don't hear about the American dream anymore. And you're going to hear about it. People, they need that incentive to go out and do it. And they're going to love their lives. I mean, they're going to look forward to getting up in the morning and going to a job that they love, not a job that they can't stand, or not any job at all where they have no money, where they literally have no money, and then they end up with violence and lots of other problems. No, we're going to do some great things. And I learned a lot in the first. We had a great economy and all of that. We rebuilt the military, we did so much. But I also learned the best people. I learned the good people, the smart people, the dumb people, the people that can do things. The people, you learn. When I first came in, I tell people I was in Washington, D.C. only 17 times, according to the fake news media. I was in 17 times. I never stayed over. And you don't know people. You rely on other people to give you names, and then you realize the people you relied on weren't so good. Now, we had great people, but we also had some where I wouldn't have, used them had I known. Now I know everybody. And I think we're going to really turn things around fast. We have no choice. Otherwise, we're not going to have a country. And I really appreciate this. This has been, to me, it's been a lot of fun being with you. You're an amazing guy. You've done an incredible job and a great inspiration to people, a great inspiration. And I hope you keep going and just continue to do well. And we're going to have a big election coming up. And I think November 5th will be the most important day in the history of our country. I think that election will be the most important election. And I think it'll end up being maybe the most important day in the history of our country, because if we don't win, I just feel so sorry for everybody.
No, I think we're at a fork in the road of destiny of civilization, and I think we need to take the right path, and I think you're the right path. So I think that's what it comes down to.
Thank you very much, Elon. It's a great honor, and we'll do it again sometime. And it's been really fun, and I hope you got a lot of viewers. I hear you got a lot. I know you got a lot. I know you got a lot of them.
A lot.
So I appreciate it. I'll see you soon.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Well, I guess that's that. So before I go, let's just watch this interesting little video. The previous CEO of YouTube just died of turbo cancer.
Reporting for Press for Truth with breaking news. The former CEO of YouTube has just died suddenly of a turbo cancer that she just developed 2 years ago. Former YouTube CEO Susan Wojcicki dies of cancer, age 56. This comes just 8 months after her 19-year-old son was killed by a drug overdose. But more importantly, she developed this cancer and died after taking the COVID-1984 vaccine, the very same one she's been heavily promoting and banning people like me for warning people not to take it. Like in August of 2020, when I interviewed the Highwire's Del Bigtree on censorship and the coming mandatory vaccination program. And of course,
just want to add that my client that I make films for, Matthew Arrett, he just did a full show with Del Bigtree. Find it. Easy search, Del Bigtree, Matthew Arrett, E-H-R-E-T.
Of course, I was labeled as a conspiracy theorist for saying all of that back then, but it has all come to fruition. Our channels did get censored, and the vaccine did become de facto mandatory for many people. Remember when I posted this video on July 7th of 2020 titled Confirmed: The Absolute Science Behind Masks and the Proof That They Don't Work with Denny Rancor? Wearing a mask may soon be mandatory depending on where you live, and this is causing a debate about whether or not masks are actually effective when it comes to protecting your health during a pandemic. Multiple studies have now concluded that masks are not only ineffective, but they in fact offer a disadvantage to those who choose to wear them. And guess what happened 1 week after posting that video? On July 15th, 2020, Press for Truth banned on YouTube. And just like that, all my videos became unavailable for violating YouTube's policies against so-called medical misinformation. Back then, I was saying there is no evidence that children should be taking these vaccines or boosters. And then, 2 years later, World Health Organization says there's no evidence healthy children and adolescents need COVID boosters. Vindicated. Back then, I was also explaining how they were fudging the numbers, claiming that people were dying from COVID when they were actually dying with COVID. And then 2 years later, a quarter of all COVID deaths are now patients who died with the virus, not from it. Official data shows. Vindicated. Ontario, first province to correct misinformation on COVID hospitalization numbers. Ontario is the first province in Canada to update its COVID-19 reporting system to better distinguish patients hospitalized because of the virus from those who tested positive for it after coming to the hospital for other reasons. Listen now to the late Susan Wojcicki at the World Economic Forum discussing how YouTube implemented certain policies surrounding so-called medical misinformation when it comes to COVID.
We're definitely investing a huge amount to make sure that we're fighting misinformation, and there are a number of different ways that we look at this. So the first would be from a policy standpoint, we would look at content that we would think about in terms of being violative of our policies. So if you look at COVID, for example, we came up with 10 different policies that we said would be violative. Like an example of that would be saying that COVID came from something other than a virus. And we did see people attacking 5G equipment, for example, because they thought that it was causing COVID. And so that would just be an example of a policy that we'd remove. So we do remove content based on those policies. We actually publish that in a transparency report. The second one would be really raising up authoritative information. So if you are dealing with a sensitive subject like news, health, science, we are going to make sure that what we're recommending is coming from a trusted, well-known publisher that can be reliable. And if you think about how Google works, it's very similar. Like if you type in cancer or you type in COVID, what you're going to get are going to be names that you recognize. They're not going to be someone that just published a web page yesterday. So it's very similar with regard to how we handle that on YouTube. The third is making sure that if there's content that's borderline content that technically meets our policy but is lower quality, that's content that we basically will recommend to our users. Our users could still access it, but they will not recommend it. And then lastly, we're just really careful about what we monetize. So we always want to make sure that there's no incentive. So for example, with regard to climate change, we don't monetize any kind of climate change material. So there's no incentive for you to keep publishing that material that is propagating something that is generally understood as not accurate information.
That was pretty blatant in terms of how they would shadow ban borderline content or flat out ban any content that violates the official narrative. And then here in this clip, she explains how they themselves use influencers and propaganda to steer the conversation into their desired direction.
When it comes to vaccines, vaccine hesitancy, videos that cause a public health risk, where do you want to see YouTube do better?
Well, first of all, we've taken responsibility very seriously. It's been one of my top priorities. And with regard to COVID and with regard to vaccines, that has been a top priority for us.
Thanks,
and we have a number of different ways that we address that. So first of all, we want to make sure that if there's information that violates our policies, we came up with 10 different.
Okay, fuck these bitches. I just got given a jug. Rain just got married to his girl of a lifetime, Mrs. Rain, and they went to Haines, Alaska for their honeymoon. And they brought me back one of the best beer, I think, on earth from the Haines Brewing Company, Spruce Tip Ale. It's a giant jug. This is a treat that I've been coming up, for 15 years, every year or two to visit Rain from when he moved up here and go fishing trips and hunting and yada, yada, yada. And the highlight was always going to Haines, Alaska, and to visually see how America fucked us and grabbed the most beautiful parts of the North and left us with the Yukon, which is beautiful, but it's like a stark beauty. Alaska is much more, it's like BC meets Norway. Imagine British Columbia with, 800-foot sequoia trees and stuff, with Norwegian fjords coming in from the ocean. It's just the most beautiful place. So that was always a highlight of the trip. But the real highlight was Haines Brewing Company, Spruce Tip Ale. And they just got back from their honeymoon while I'm streaming right now. And you just put that on my desk. That's why I love being up here in the Yukon. Beautiful, beautiful shit. All right. So, yeah, Susan Wojcicki from YouTube. Sorry that you died. Sorry that you took 17 boosters. It's all that. I want to thank everyone for joining. It's been a really special stream tonight. Thank you all very much. And I think we'll call it here. And as the summer winds down here and the wedding is done in the Yukon, you can expect much more regular Super Spreaders videos going forward. I don't want to let you guys down and surprise you with me not being around, but I think summertime in the Yukon is going to be quiet on Super Spreaders. Probably still active on Twitter, but as far as doing videos and putting content up on the streaming sites, probably be a little bit weak, but we're heading into the cold weather now. And we will be engaging a lot more. We'll take a comment here. Benevolent dictator. IARC was the British arbiter who gave the Americans the panhandle. Interesting. What you got to do is head over to CanadianPatriot.org. Go to their video section. It should be featured on their site because it's the latest film that we did. You can see how the sale of Alaska to America happened back in the day. And it flies in the face of the entire story that America and Russia are somehow bitter enemies through nature. God backs America and Satan backs Russia is a complete lie. And Russia sold Alaska to America in a benevolent attempt to try to create peace throughout that entire region. And even once the Civil War came shortly after in America, Russia backed the North and protected northern coastlines from British-paid pirates who were trying to bolster up the slave owners in the South. Fascinating. So anyone, please, if you long for just calm and a return to world peace, watch that documentary, CanadianPatriot.org. It's called The Arctic Platform for War or World Peace. Go, go, go. I showed a bit earlier. Just rewind this when we kill it. Rewind back about 15 minutes into the stream, and we watched a whole chunk of it. There's a missed chance for peace, and we can get it back. And Donald Trump is the only president I'm aware of that made any inroads in this. He approved a railroad to go from Alberta to Alaska. Let's get it. Let's spread it. Let's go. Why are we not doing this stuff? Can you imagine how quickly peace would spread around the world if we had trains that ran from Edmonton to Siberia? And then you could get on the Siberian Express and roll all the way to Moscow? Can you imagine how much more peaceful the world would be? Where are our current leaders that are proposing these projects? Why are all our leaders being encouraged to just screech and yell at each other over meaningless, ideological? When we need to get down to brass tacks and get our people together. Can you imagine a railway that went from Edmonton up through Nunavut, through to Yukon, through to Alaska? Can you imagine the uplift that would happen in those communities? They could build hotels, casinos, movie theaters in Nunavut. And this was planned in the 1950s. John Diefenbaker in Canada had an entire plan to convert war bonds into northern development. It's all in that documentary, CanadianPatriot.org, the Arctic documentary. Go watch it now. But for now, I'm going to check out. And everyone that does have Twitter, I'm going to pop into Wogpog space, and we'll continue discussing the events of the evening, see if we learned anything about Trump. We didn't learn anything. I don't know. Let's go. Benevolent dictator, Snowpiercer. Yeah, right. That's the train he wants to build. That's the train that Trudeau would build, would be the Snowpiercer. All right. Love you all. In the meantime, let's spread it. Thank you all.